Welcome to Sacred Realms. It's a great day in Hyrule, y'all. Welcome to Sacred Realms, a Zelda Retrospective Podcast. I'm your host, Lyndon Willoughby, and I'm joined, as always, by my co-host, Matt Willoughby. How you doing tonight, Matt?
I'm pretty good, Lyndon. It is, it's mid-February, exactly the middle, and we're outside, which is amazing. It's like 60 degrees exactly, and it feels wonderful. So
yeah, you know,
in a good mood.
This is the kind of weather that you really spend all winter sort of hoping for, right? You know, like I could dip about 10 to 15 degrees colder than this once or twice a week, you know?
Yeah.
Just kind of keep the variety, right? But it's like, I'm wearing a very light jacket right now, and I probably didn't even need that. I probably would have been okay in a t-shirt. So this is nice. This is a fun change of pace. It's great weather. There's no wind. It's just a beautiful evening.
Well, there's no wind because we're in the courtyard, which is sheltered completely. So that's nice.
That is the nice thing about it for sure. Of course, we're recording this the night after Valentine's Day. I was out here. I sent you a picture, Matt. I was out here last night. I fired up the open flame solo stove and made a cast iron steak meal right out here under the stars. It was. It was a fun little culinary experiment, and I enjoyed it quite a lot.
Well, that sounds like a whole lot of fun. Valentine's Day is always fun. I guess it's kind of fun. I still think it's a Hallmark holiday that I don't particularly enjoy, but it does give you an excuse to enjoy a nice meal with a loved one, or yourself if you don't have someone to spend Valentine's Day with.
Treat yourself. Treat yourself day.
Treat yourself.
Yep.
So I made a fun little meal last night as well. I did did a new experiment for myself also. Did some pan searing of some a rack of lamb, and then I finished it off in the oven to a nice medium rare, nice creamy mashed potatoes and a Diane sauce. It's like a steak Diane sauce.
Yeah.
That's the mushrooms and Worcestershire and beef stock. It's some other ingredients in there. It's very, very, very good. Turned out quite delicious. So,
and you flambéed that? If I
did flambe.
Yeah.
I did flambe. I added some Woodford double oaked and got some fire going. It's the first time I've ever successfully flambéed anything, which was a huge thing for me. And I looked at my fiance and I was like, I did a flambe. And she was like, I don't know what that means, but I'm happy for you, I guess. I was like, yes.
I do know what it means, and I'm also happy for you. I consider myself pretty handy in the kitchen, right? But you definitely take the cake, sir. You are what I would consider to be a top tier culinary enthusiast.
Well, thank you much. I appreciate that. I have fun.
It's nice having one of you around, I gotta say.
It's true. I do experiment on you more often than anybody else. So, and most of the time that works out to your benefit.
Yeah, I was going to say, I don't think we've ever had any well, actually, that one time we tried to make the demi-glaze and
it turned into like a jelly.
Yeah.
It was really bad. We didn't even eat it. So
we're looking at I don't think we're going to put this on our stage.
Yeah, I think we're just going to go ahead and toss that right in the trash.
It's like we could probably seal a pipe with it or something. I don't know.
It did look like pipe sealant. It was pretty bad.
Oh, man. Anyway, either way, tonight is not Valentine's Day night. It's recording night, which is a fun enough evening in its own right. I'm always enjoying being here at this wonderful location, doing this with you, Matt. It's always a great time. It's even more fun when we bring a guest along to break down a section of game with us. And tonight we have one such individual. You know him, you love him. He's the wonder from down under, Cody Davies, joining us for the first time since we recorded episodes in person while he was in town last month. How you doing, Cody?
Choo choo howdy, as they say in Texas.
Choo choo howdy.
It's weird. I was at 7-Eleven earlier and the cashier looked me dead in the face and said choo choo howdy. I didn't know what it meant, but it all makes sense now. That's just a thing we do here, apparently. Yeah, it's choo choo all aboard season. Cody, we're playing Spirit Tracks.
We are in fact playing Spirit Tracks.
Yeah.
Look, I'm having fun. I'm having fun playing Spirit Tracks, to be honest. So happy to talk about it.
Yeah, and just to clarify, did you fire up a new save to play along with us at kind of the same schedule?
Yeah, well, if by schedule you mean basically last night I did the whole thing in one approximately 4-hour stretch, then yes.
Well, that works.
Yeah, I was going to say
that works.
And the fact that you spent 4 unbroken hours with Spirit Tracks and you're coming into this show with a what seems to be a positive outlook on things bodes well for the variety of this discussion. So I always like hearing that. Cody, I'm sure Australia is happy to have you back, but I do have to say I miss being able to record in person. That was a rare treat that I hope we get to replicate again at some point in the not too distant future.
I mean, look,
knowing full well that it's a huge pain for you to get here.
I'll be there in, maybe it's 1 year, maybe 2 years. What you'll be doing and what you'll be recording, I don't know by that time, but I'm sure we'll be able to record some sort of podcast together.
I'm sure we could make something up. We could, even if we're done with the regular run of seasons at that point, I'm sure we could do a one-off episode.
I feel like 2 years from now, we should be getting an announcement trailer for the next mainline Zelda game that won't come out for another 7 years. So basically the hype cycle is going to start right back up at some point in there. And I don't know, at least we'll have that to talk about.
I mean, well, see, that's the thing is Spirit Tracks was only 2 years separated from Phantom Hourglass. So it used to be that we had games at quite a regular pace, but I don't expect anything if they're going to continue going down the Breath of the Wild direction for a while, because those games are not ones that you can pump out in a year or two.
No, they are unfortunately not. And any hope of new top-down Zelda experiences seems like kind of a fool's dream right now. But who knows? We could be wrong. Been wrong before. Like talking within this line of conversation, Cody. I'm sure you being involved with the wonderful site that is Zelda Universe have got your finger on the pulse of Zelda news and Nintendo news generally as it kind of floats around on the socials, on the webs. And right now we're in the inevitable period where everyone just seems positive that a Nintendo Direct is coming soon. Are you yourself somewhat confident in the imminent arrival of a Nintendo Direct? And if we do get one, what do you, I don't know, take a guess. What do you think we're going to see?
So I think we'll get one because it's not really a guess at this point so much as just looking at their past schedule. For the past 5 or 6 years, either in February or in March, there's been a Direct. This tends to be the time of the year that they schedule one to talk about what's coming up in the first half of the year, basically. And look, they'll probably... I don't know. I think if they're not going to be doing their big announcement of a new console or whatever, they're probably just going to be talking about some of the later stuff that's coming up. The Princess Peach game, maybe, Unicorn Overlord, which has a ridiculous name, but I'm definitely looking forward to it. There's always going to be bits here and there, but my expectation is that the new Zelda and the new 3D Mario, etc., are probably going to be in development for the next console, not this one.
Yeah, with a wild card option always being, what has the 3D Mario team been working on, and is it a launch title for the new console? So
they've always launched with something. Something solid first party. I don't remember what launched on the Wii U. That was a bit of an off console generation, to be honest. But generally speaking, the Wii launched with Twilight Princess. The Switch launched with Breath of the Wild. There's been some good, solid launch titles.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I mean, it's Nintendo, so anything could happen. But I for one, am definitely going to be paying a little bit more attention to social media over the next few days than I normally would, because as much as I would love to see an announcement for a new console, I also do, I want to see if there's a 3D Mario game out there. I'd love to see an update on that. If there's any kind of update whatsoever on Metroid Prime 4, which I don't necessarily believe that there is, but all of these things, like there are things I want to catch up with. There was a rumor floating around that it might be a Let's Go style Gold and Silver remake. I know that people have a lot of skepticism about whether or not that rumor is actually true. I don't know. It doesn't sound like a super likely thing to me, but I love Gold and Silver, so I would love if it was true. But yeah, and then of course, I'm still not entirely convinced that we don't just get a free update for Tears of the Kingdom that has Master Mode as a part of it. Like I know they're not doing DLC for Tears, but it does feel odd to me for it not to get a Master Mode when Breath of the Wild got it, and I don't know.
Yeah, I think that's possible. They may be differentiating a patch from a DLC in the sense that the DLC is like something that people have to pay for.
Yeah, exactly. And it's like not necessarily new content or anything, right? Like I'm not expecting a Trial of the Sword-esque expansion or like a Champions Ballad sort of deal, but it would feel very strange if Tears of the Kingdom just never got a hero mode. I feel like that game is sort of begging for it. And, then we would, if it doesn't, then we're never going to have gold enemies in Tears of the Kingdom. And that would just be sad.
That would be sad. I think they'll probably give some sort of update or they will launch a definitive edition on the Switch 2 or something.
Yeah, that seems like a very likely possibility as well. What's better than selling Tears of the Kingdom once? It's selling Tears of the Kingdom twice. So
that is Nintendo's general MO, is how can we sell these games more than once? Yes.
Yeah, and I mean,
and they're pretty darn good at it.
Speaking of Pokemon, they're the masters at it, because even when they first release it, you buy 2 copies of the game. Then they're like, well, here's Pokemon, Heart Gold and Soul Silver, and then. Okay, there's 2 more games, and then you're buying the same game 6 times if you're going to collect your upcoming theorized Let's Go
Silver
Let's
and
Go
Gold
for Alligator.
Let's go Cyndaquil. Let's go for Alligator.
Exactly right.
Or Totodile. Yeah.
Yeah.
Let's go Unknown A. Let's go Unknown B.
You can do all 26.
Exactly right. There you go. 26 versions. Collect them all.
Wow.
Oh, geez.
I think there are more than 26 unknown, because don't they have punctuation and stuff?
Oh, they do have some punctuations in there. That's right. They have like question marks, and I think there's 100 of them.
Are there?
I think so.
Jeez. I always wondered how those translate to non-English languages. Like, the unknown have to look the same no matter what your alphabet is, right? Like Cyrillic.
Yeah, that would be a pretty
Japanese.
Intense amount of changes if in every localization unknowns just became completely different. It's like, oh, this is the Chinese alphabet now. And it's like, whoa, okay. Chinese doesn't have an alphabet, and they've got like thousands of symbols.
That would be pretty impressive, honestly.
There's one guy at Game Freak whose job has been
localization of the unknowns.
Yeah, for years, just to sit in a room by himself and design completely localized.
Eventually, just for the fun of it, he did Sanskrit just because he started going insane.
Exactly right.
Like, I'm just doing it anyway.
Because at this point, what's the difference? Oh, man. All right. Well, as to the rumors of a Nintendo Direct, we'll see sooner rather than later. The nice thing about this whole rumor cycle is that it always ends up being true inevitably at some point.
At some point.
Oh, yeah. Well, so that's
Which
the
is
thing
good.
about people on Twitter who are like, there's a Nintendo Direct coming. It's like, yes, well, that's true. I can predict that the sun will come up in the morning too.
Yeah.
And that it will be cloudy at some point in the future.
Yeah, if I just say at some
I don't know
point
when,
the sun
but it will
come
be
up again, like that's real, it's a real easy prediction to get right. And if you don't get it right, then nobody will know.
There you go.
No one will be around to give you crap about it. I like your outlook on these things, Cody. But of course, we're not here to talk about Nintendo Directs, either real or fictitious. We are here to talk about The Legend of Zelda Spirit Tracks. So let's go ahead and get the housekeeping out of the way and then jump right into it. If you didn't know, Sacred Realms is a weekly re-examination of The Legend of Zelda, one little slice at a time. Sacred Realms drops every Wednesday and is available on all major podcast networks. Every week, we play a new section of a Zelda game, and then we sit down here to talk and to drop our hot takes. If that sounds fun to you, please head over to Apple Podcasts, hit that subscribe button, and be sure to leave us a review. 5-star reviews are greatly appreciated, and they have a chance to get a shout out here on the show. If you want more Sacred Realms in your life, you can head over to patreon.com/Sacred Realms Pod to get access to our Discord channel, listener mail, vote on what game we play next, and much more. Additionally, one of the benefits that Master Sword patrons and above get is that we read their names every week here on the show. Those legendary individuals are Freddie, Brandon, Shriequill, Joseph, Nintendo, Adam, Sakura Sky, Art, Jeremy, Dante, Tom, Andy, Billy, Connor, Rachel, Shepherd Street, Matthew, Chris, Daniel, Fallout 907, Kelso, Chris, Tiffany the Star, Patrice, Stephanie, Darknuck, Il Maestro himself, Brian, George, Mike, Dylan, Lennon, Kolku, Rowan, Josh, Nick, Dante 1, Gep, Brittany, Davey, Haru the Mighty, Derek, Albert, Mark, Andy, Cameron, Ben, Daniel, Nick D _TV, Hyrule Interviews, aka Max Nichols, and Garrett, and we're back to 2 pages. Drew, of course it's Drew. Love you, Drew. These are the most legendary of individuals, and I would solve a Who's Who style mystery puzzle in the Anuki village with any of them any day of the week.
But we didn't do that this week.
Well, it was kind of an extension of that sort of thing, right?
Of the one we did in Phantom Hourglass.
Yeah, it's like it's not a who's who, right? But it's
I don't know, Lyndon. I don't assist
pairing.
war criminals.
We'll talk more about this. I have thoughts. I have thoughts about the Anuki in this episode.
All right.
You're right. I guess the game we played this week is a little bit more of like a HR department
It is very
sort of thing.
Very HR. This is the kind of thing I have to do in corporate America when my boss is like, hey, get a group together that's going to help you run this project. I have to go through the list of people who generally help me and be like, these 2 people don't work together, but these people also don't work well together. If we take these 3 people to happy hour, it's going to get out of control. So yeah, this is very corporate America HR strategy session.
Absolutely.
Love it.
No getting around it. Again, talk about all this before too long. Of course, we have one order of business that we've got to get to before we can do that. And you know what that order of business is, Matt?
It is everyone's favorite topic. Whiskey Bit.
Whiskey Bit. All right, you provided it, Matt, so you get to give us the rundown on what we're drinking tonight.
I did. So this is actually a very special bottle to us and me personally. So for my bachelor party a couple weekends ago, we went to a local distillery, which is about 35 minutes north of where we live in Denison, Texas, which is right outside of Sherman. Basically, it's like very close to the border of Oklahoma and Texas. So we went up to Denison, and the distillery there is called Iron Root Distillery. It has a really cool backstory and history, a lot of fun facts to be learned about Denison, Texas, of all places. But this distillery, Iron Root, is really excellent. And while we were there, we did the whole distillery tour. They even let me do a barrel thief right out of their barrel because it was my bachelor party. They said that they have never let anyone do that before, but this was also their first bachelor party, so it was kind of like a cool first for everybody. It was a ton of fun. So the bottle that I brought tonight for Whiskey Bit is one of their finished whiskeys. Iron Root does mostly corn-based whiskeys, and this is a corn whiskey that was finished in a blend of different types of other alcohols. This one specifically was Armagnac, which is a different type of, it's like cognac, but it's just not distilled in the cognac region of France, but it has a similar flavor profile. So they took one of their corn whiskeys, threw it in an Armagnac barrel for about 1.5 years, pulled it out, poured it in here, and that's what we got. And it's very, very delicious.
And what's this one called again?
It's called the Herald is what it's called. And their finished whiskeys are actually labeled as Saints Alley, which I don't really know why. We didn't actually get the answer from them on that, but it's labeled under Saints Alley, called the Herald, but it's an Iron Root product. Very, very good. So excited to be representing Iron Root tonight and enjoying one of their delicious whiskeys.
Absolutely, and I 100% have to co-sign that the whiskey tour that we took for Matt's bachelor party was one of the most fun days I've had in a long time. Super interesting. The staff was incredibly knowledgeable. It turns out they've won World of Whiskey awards for several of their different blends. Like they are champions of the world in certain kinds of whiskey. Yep. And it's run by a family, and the distillery owner and manager, they were the ones who gave us the tour. So knowing that they've had that much success and they're still on hand on Saturdays to give tours and talk to people, it really impressed me quite a lot. We had a great time.
Absolutely agree.
Here's to Iron Root Republic Distillery.
There you go. Cheers.
Also to everyone's most ethically undubious species, the Anuki.
Oh, yeah. I don't know if I can cheers that, but to Iron Root at least, yes. Man, that's good. That's very tasty. It's very sweet. Pulls in a lot of that cognac-esque flavor. Man, yeah, really good. Wow.
Absolutely. Real quick, I'm making sure I've got ZeldaWiki.wiki pulled up for the Snow Temple.
Good, because if you don't, Cody's going to come through the microphone and behead you.
I would be in violation of one of the Sacred Realms rundown segments if I were not on ZeldaWiki.wiki, and I would hate to do that. All right, y'all. Without further ado, let's go ahead and talk about what we played. We do that every week in the Sacred Realms rundown, which is a 6-part analysis of what we played this week and the feelings that it made us feel. Today, we are covering Chapter 2 of Spirit Tracks, dealing with the northwestern snowy region of Hyrule and the Snow Temple. Part 1 of the Sacred Realms rundown is, as always, the plot recap, this week read by Matt. Take it away, Matt. Hey, y'all, you thought you were getting Matt here, didn't you? Sorry to say he's having some technical difficulties today, so I'm stepping in and recording this plot recap in his place. So without further ado, here's the plot recap. This week, as it turns out, read by me. As we leave the Forest Temple, we set our course back to the Tower of Spirits to obtain the second rail map. We notice that the rail map is showing other trains on the tracks once again, and are pleased to see Hyrule's railways slowly returning to normal. The trip back to Hyrule Field isn't a long one, as apparently the Lost Woods only work to keep people out of the Forest Sanctuary. Once we arrive in the field, we feel a surge of dark power flow across the tracks, and the trains that are visible on the rail map suddenly transform into dark and twisted mockeries of their normal selves. We have a bad feeling about this, and that intuition is confirmed when we go near one of the trains and see that it now bears a face with fire coming out of eye sockets, and it travels the tracks with an insane speed and a determination to cause havoc. We steer past the dark trains in Hyrule Field and dock back at the Tower of Spirits, ready to conquer the next floor with Zelda. After we dock, we hop off the train and talk to Anjean about our next steps. She congratulates us for our success in the Forest Temple, and tells us that our efforts have successfully restored a large amount of energy to the tower. The next temple we need to free is in the mountains, and is currently closed off by severe snowstorms. The spiral staircase of the tower now ascends past the first floor and up to the second, allowing fast access to the next rooms we need to conquer. The floor has some interesting added challenges in the form of lava pits and fire spewing statues that block our path, in addition to the phantoms roaming the halls. We start our way around the floor looking for the Tears of Light so that we can get Zelda into the phantom armor to help us out. It doesn't take long before we empower our sword and banish one of the evil spirits out of the phantom armor so Zelda can take it over. This turns out to be even more useful than last time we were here, because she's able to ferry us across the pools of lava on her large shield without the armor taking any damage at all. By using the phantom armor, we are able to successfully navigate the pools of lava and the streams of fire that would normally block our way. We even utilize the armor as a launching point to reach raised platforms and combat some mini-blends riding on stone mechanisms. It seems that the floors of the Tower of Spirits will be getting harder and harder as we go up, but at the end of the day we obtain the second rail map, restoring the spirit tracks to the north of the forest leading into the snowy mountains. Before we leave the tower, Anjean tells us that the next Lokomo we must find is named Steam, and within the Snow Sanctuary he will be able to help us restore the tracks leading to the temple. We board the spirit train and set off north to the snowy mountainous region of Hyrule. Along the way, we are continually attacked by monsters, and even more annoyingly, the path north is blocked by large stones on the tracks. Zelda advises that we should head back and find some way to upgrade the defensive capabilities of the spirit train, so we reverse course and steam along to Hyrule Castle Town to find Alfonso. Once we arrive, we find our mentor up and about, recovered from his injuries. Once we give him the rundown on the state of things, he's understandably distressed about the plight of the spirit tracks and the Tower of Spirits, but seemingly more so about the fate of the princess. He does agree, however, to help us out with the upgrades to the spirit train, so we board the engine and head home to Aboda Village. When we arrive, Alfonso sends us off to kill some time while he tends to the upgrades. So we go and see our old friend Nico. Nico is glad to see us and asks us for a favor, that we take his stamp book with us on our journey and fill it with stamps as often as we can find new ones. We agree, happy to humor our old friend in his hobby. With another brief walk around the small village to talk to our neighbors, we head back to Alfonso's workshop to see him pulling the spirit train back onto its tracks. Attached to the train, behind the conductor's cabin, is a large cannon meant for warding off monsters and pulverizing obstacles. With huge amounts of gratitude, we thank Alfonso and board the train to make our way north once again. Using the new cannon, we are easily able to ward off the monsters of Hyrule Field and blow up the boulders blocking our path. As we enter the northern section of Hyrule, we find that hardly any of the tracks in this area are back in operation, and the path to most of the section is blocked, leaving our only open path, the one that takes us to the village of the local Anuki tribe. The snow isn't too thick as we steam our way up to the dock, but the village is covered in a goodly layer of cold white powder. While the environment is a far cry from the coastal village we grew up in, it seems cozy and friendly enough, so we start our exploration around to see if anyone can help us reach the sanctuary. The Anuki are a strange lot, with very roundabout ways of speaking, and they are generally not very helpful. Eventually, we make our way to the village elder, who won't give us any help unless we help him to pair off his villagers into monster hunting teams, because the village has been under frequent attack from monsters that are now roaming the countryside. He says that the villagers are very particular about who they work with, and he doesn't really feel like going to the effort of figuring out the best teams. So instead, he assigns us the task, with the reward being the information that we need. We begrudgingly set off into the cold and start to talk to the other 5 villagers near the elder's house. Some of them refuse to work with other Anuki based on the size of their antlers, the presence of facial hair, or simple dislike of the individuals themselves, making the task far more tedious than it ought to be given that we're talking about the safety of their homes. But eventually we figure out the best combinations of folks and head back to the elder's house to give him the news. Once we pair everyone off successfully, the elder tells us that the cave leading to the sanctuary and the rest of the area is infested with a giant monster that has been killing anyone foolish enough to set foot in its territory. He says they blocked off the entrance to the cave to keep the monster from coming to the village and destroying it entirely. Undaunted by the presence of the cave monster, we leave the Anuki village and head into the snowy tundra to find the snow sanctuary. The tunnel isn't far from Anuki village, and we enter the cold dark warily, ready for anything. As we pass a little ways into the mouth of the cavern, we see a large hulking mass stuck to the ceiling, but as we pass underneath of it, nothing happens, at least at first. Once we are a little further in, the monster, which looks like a crab the size of a house that is encased in rock, drops from the ceiling and roars its rage at our intrusion. We set the speed lever at full tilt and start to make a run for it as fast as we can. We turn the cannon to the rear and start blasting away at the creature, aiming for its singular enormous eye, which seems to be its only weak spot. Again and again, the monster charges at us, intent on destroying our train and us in the process. Again and again, we drive it back to the darkness with the cannon. As we near the end of the tunnel, the monster rushes forward once more, desperate to punish us for intruding into its domain. But the cannon Alfonso installed for us shoots true, and we destroy the immense beast once and for all. With the cave free of its hungry denizen, we pass out the other side into the frozen tundra of northern Hyrule. The snow sanctuary is just on the other side of the cave, and we dock there to find steam and open up the path to the temple. Instead of a peaceful sanctuary of snow, we find a place infested with enemies like White Wolfos and Ice Chews, which try desperately to stop us from reaching Steam. We deal with the creatures and make our way through a tricky maze of gazing statues to find the reclusive Lokomo, who seems even more ancient than Angine. As with Gage, Steam teaches us a Lokomo song duet that he plays with us in order to empower the rest of the tracks in the Snow Realm. Once complete, the tracks span all the way to the temple in the north, and also into the fields in the east. As the rail map begins to glow, Steam warns us of the severe blizzards that have been blocking the path to the temple recently, and tells us to be very careful on our journey to the temple. We set off north to the temple, and true to Steam's warning, we are stopped cold by the ferocious blizzard which threatens to blow us right off the tracks. We decide that safety is better than speed, so we go back to the Anuki village to get some advice on how to navigate the storm. Per usual, the Anuki are helpful after some roundabout discussion, but eventually the Elder tells us to seek out Ferris in the eastern fields. Ferris is supposedly an expert on trains, and if anyone would know how to navigate the storm, it would be him. We therefore head east to find the reclusive Ferris and get his help navigating the rest of the way to the temple. We find him on the south end of the eastern tracks once his giddy joy over seeing the actual spirit train in person subsides slightly. He shows us an old rail map that marks out the path we need to take to reach the temple. Once we set course for the temple along the path Ferris helped us locate, it's quick shot to the snow temple, only mildly interrupted by evil trains and malicious living snowmen trying to kill us along the way. We arrive at the snow temple at last, awed to see its grand towers, high fences, and the enormous ice crystals jutting from its domed spires. As we dock in the temple, we see that the icy cold of the mountains is mirrored within the snow temple, and the enemies we are set to face have adapted to the frigid conditions as well. The opening room is an icy floor with many doors leading off further into the temple, and a large bell on a raised pedestal in the middle. After dealing with some ice chews, we slide the bell across the floor until it lands in a recess, allowing us to strike the bell with our sword. Its clear note rings across the room and opens up a door on the far side that leads further into the temple. Following the now open door, we begin our explorations to find our way to the Force Gem. The icy floor provides a series of puzzles and challenges that we have to navigate, but they aren't the only obstacle to overcome. Octaves seem to have taken up residence in some of the watery areas of the temple and shoot their spiked projectiles at us as we make our way around. In the basement, we have to use a floating box combined with our whirlwind to sail around the submerged areas. After activating a few wind turbines, defeating a handful of octaves, and navigating the frigid waters of the basement level, we find ourselves trapped in a room with half a dozen icy keys. Using the whirlwind, we stun the buggers before finishing them off with our sword. Once the last keys falls, we claim the boomerang and add it to our arsenal. One of the amazing things about this boomerang is that it can capture and carry the essence of elements, which comes in handy by allowing us to use the ice sconces to freeze paths in the water, or the fire sconces to melt away snow and ice that blocks our way. As we continue our explorations, we find another bell, this one far smaller than the first, and maneuver it into the main area with the first bell. Once we slot it into place, we look for a way to use it correctly to open the door. We find a plaque in the room the bell was sitting in, and follow the notes on it to play the two bells in concert. Using the boomerang to hit the bells in the correct sequence, we open the door to the next area of the dungeon and move further in. The next room requires that we use the boomerang to light some torches in a specific sequence, which opens a passage back to the basement. In this section of the tower level, we have to use the boomerang to create ice paths for us to walk over the water. Luckily, there are some handy ice sconces around to assist, and we make our way across the waters to claim a small key. In the room behind the locked door, we are ambushed by a group of mini Freezards, which make short use of the boomerang and a handy fire torch nearby. After melting the ice around another wind turbine and activating it with the whirlwind, we use the boomerang to cross another expanse of frigid water with some handmade ice paths, leading back up to the main floor and our third bell. We have to be creative in getting this bell into the main room, creating some ice paths over an inconvenient stretch of water that would otherwise block our way. But eventually, with some clever timing and strategy, we get the largest of the three bells into the main room and into its appointed place. We don't see any plaques with instructions on how to play the bells, so we explore a little more until we find ourselves in a courtyard outside filled with fire torches and an expanse of snow on the ground. By melting the snow, we can see the order of notes we need to play, and again, using the boomerang on all 3 of the bells, we open the final door, leading to the 2nd floor of the temple. Our trials aren't totally done yet, but the last of the puzzles blocking our path to the Force Gem are more of the same that we have already overcome. With some handy boomerang work and a little help from the whirlwind, we claim the big key and open up the path to the top of the temple at last. We find ourselves at the top of the stairs, in the shattered remains of a grand dome that once adorned the top of the temple. Most of the dome has crumbled to dust, but the back wall and ornate carvings on the floors showcase how grand this edifice must have been in its prime. As we're taking in the scenes, 2 torches appear from thin air, one with fire and one with icy blue flames. In the middle of these torches is a freakish creature, its face mottled blue and red, and its huge yellow eyes sit between bat-like ears. It floats in the air and suddenly inflates itself to 2 or 3 times its normal size. Once it returns to its normal size, it dances crazily towards the fire torch and begins to glow with a fiery light. As it expands, it seems ready to expel the power of fire towards us, so we dodge out of the way, avoiding the deadly flames. As Froz circles the torches, we get the idea to use the power of the torches against him, and the next time he glows with an elemental power, we grab the power of the opposite element with the boomerang and throw it back at him. This stuns the creature, allowing us to get in some hits with our blade. He recovers and begins circling again, but we know the trick now and quickly smack him down once more. Once we hit him with the empowered boomerang, he isn't stunned. Instead, he splits into 2 small sprites. We have to use the magical map to see which sprite is the aspect of fire and which is the aspect of ice, and use the boomerang to vanquish each with their opposite element. Once we do, they combine into the normal Froz once more, who turns and destroys the 2 torches, leaving us with no way to counter his magic. As Froz begins to inflate once more, all we can do is run and dodge his attacks. As he spews fire across the ground, we watch carefully to see what he will do next. When he next powers up with icy energy, we use his own fire against him and stun the creature once more. Thus we begin the cycle of dodge, empower the boomerang, and attack. The dodging is exhausting and becomes even more difficult as Froz becomes enraged. He begins to inflate more and more, requiring multiple hits with an empowered boomerang to stun him, and if we fail to stun him, his attacks carpet huge swaths of the arena in fire or ice. Occasionally, he will also split into sprites, requiring us to use the magical map again to destroy them both quickly before they can resurrect each other. Finally, after a grueling bout of combat with the elemental creature, we land the final blow and destroy Froz once and for all. As Froz explodes with pent-up magical energy, the white force gem of snow is released from its remains. It glows with the energy of freshly fallen powdery snow, and the light it shines across Hyrule is pure white. As it takes its place on the pedestal, we feel the energy return to the spirit tracks, and know that it is flowing once more to the Tower of Spirits. As the seal that holds Malladus is strengthened, another floor of the tower is returned to its rightful spot. We claim the heart container from the chest nearby and set our sights back on the Tower of Spirits, where we know we will need to find another rail map. There are only 2 temples remaining under the control of the evil forces seeking to resurrect the Demon King, and once they are freed, we will have access to the top of the tower. Hopefully we can empower the rest of the tracks and temples before it's too late to save the princess's body from the possession of Malladus and thereby prevent the return of the Demon King. Well done as always, Matt. That brings us to part 2, which is our takes, where we talk about this section of the game and how it made us feel. And I want to start off just by making an observation that I think with the between section, once we leave Forest Temple, everything that we do that leads us up to getting into Snow Temple, it's now pretty easy to see what the cadence of activities is going to be like between dungeons, right? Yep. Phantom Hourglass definitely kind of fell into a little bit of a predictable routine, right? Where this was all concerned. You leave the dungeon, you go talk to your quest giver, you do your Temple of the Ocean King, Tower of Spirits deal, you unlock a new part of the map, you go do a quest, a narrative quest in like one of the main towns of that area of the map, and that leads you to the dungeon. So, Cody, I'm going to start off by passing it to you first with a question. Do you feel like this is something that is exciting, or do you feel like you wish they had shaken up sort of the cadence of these events and made it a little bit different from Phantom Hourglass?
Look, I don't have a particular problem with the formula, to be honest. I think it's an improvement on Phantom Hourglass in several ways. But I guess the structure is quite similar.
Yeah, it is, and it definitely has a leg up on Phantom Hourglass in a few certain specific areas. And the one that I want to talk about first is the Tower of Spirits, which we have been to before, but coming back to it for the second time, the big question in my mind was, am I going to be redoing the first chunk of floors that I did last week? And I was very, very afraid of what that answer might be. But it turns out that all my fears are for naught, and you do not have to rebeat the sections of the tower that you've already beaten in Spirit Tracks, which right there in and of itself to me goes a long way towards making this a gameplay element that I actually don't mind so much. Matt, how do you feel about it?
Yeah, no, I think it's a massive improvement. It's something we talked about even last week, just the fear of repeating the Temple of the Ocean King mistakes, and how Spirit Tracks has looked at Phantom Hourglass and said, yeah, maybe that wasn't the best thing that we could have done, and seems to have course corrected pretty heavily on those aspects. And this is another one, and all for the better. I'm very glad we're not replaying floor one over and over and over again. So, yeah.
Yeah, for sure. How about you, Cody? Do you think that this is a clear improvement over the Temple of the Ocean King?
Definitely. In more than one way, I think the getting rid of the replaying old levels was clearly feedback that they got about Phantom Hourglass and acted on. And then even just stuff like the variety of things that you're doing there, it's not just a stealth mission. There's, several different activities that you're doing. There's some combat, there's a whole bunch of cooperative play, and teamwork stuff, which I think it is quite a fun addition, really. And you're going in with Zelda, and so that solves 3 or 4 issues that I had with the Temple of the Ocean King.
Yeah, for sure. And just in terms of so moving past, yes, it's a good thing that you don't have to replay past floors. Let's just talk about this collection of challenges in the Temple of the Ocean King that lead us up to getting the rail map for the snow area. I actually felt like this was pretty fun and was capitalizing well on the mechanics that the Temple of the Ocean King and the Spirit Tower are supposed to be built around, right? Which is like stealth, kind of timing-based puzzles, line-of-sight puzzles with indestructible enemies. And then in Spirit Tracks, obviously, we've added the buddy mechanic with Zelda on top of that. And I felt like the Spirit Tower this week was just long enough. It was it was not what I would call a slog to get through. It went decently quickly, but I feel like the puzzles did require some effort and some thought, which was fun to me. I don't know, Matt, do you feel like this was a pretty good showcase for why this sort of thing might be a good idea?
Yeah, no, I think one thing Cody said that I want to touch on is the teamwork aspect, which we historically despise escort missions.
Yeah.
And this is not an escort mission. Like, I think it's very important to delineate that what we're doing with Phantom Zelda is very, very different from an escort mission.
It's almost more like co-op Portal than it
really
is an escort
is.
mission.
Yeah, and it's fun, actually. I think it adds a really good puzzle solving element where you're having to think about the abilities of your companion character. You're having to think about how can I utilize those abilities to help me progress. And very literally, how can my companion carry me through to the next part of the dungeon? Like, it's all very, very well done. So, I don't know. I wanted to focus on that point, so I forgot the original question. But
I just the question was if you thought that it was fun. Was the Temple of the Ocean King fun?
Absolutely. I think not the Temple of the Ocean King was not fun.
Oh, sorry, God. Wow, man. I think that's the second time I've done that.
I think so too.
Was the Spirit Tower fun this week?
Yes, Spirit Tower was very fun. Very much enjoyed it. I really like that we're progressing to harder things within it. From a little bit of combat, of fighting some mini blends that were on top of their own little stone buddies, and then having to use Phantom Zelda to carry you through rivers of lava, past streams of fire. Like, all of these things I think are cool iterations on, and hopefully it keeps building. I really hope it keeps building.
Yeah, and to that point, the complexity of like the paths and stuff that you have to start drawing for Phantom Zelda really ramped up this week. And I think that it's a total positive. Like, it didn't annoy me overly much. I do think sometimes the precision of the line drawing when you're creating a path for her is not exactly what I would like it to be. And I also did notice that I had some slight annoyances with the whole system of trying to get Phantom Zelda, like when she's in the lava, trying to get her lined up with a platform at just the right spot so you could jump on to the shield, right? Some of that was a little clunky and wasn't as precise as I would have necessarily liked, but the puzzles overall, I think were really well thought out. In particular, the one with the 3 flame gouts, right?
Yeah.
The 2 low ones and the 1 high that is timed, and so you've got to kind of maneuver Zelda at a specific time and to get through that puzzle, and I think you get a key at the very end of that. But
yeah.
What do you think, Cody? I mean, I know you said that Spirit Tower as a concept has some very clear legs up over the Temple of the Ocean King, but just talking about this section of it that we played this week, do you think it's fun?
Yeah, I think it's one of the more fun sections of the game at this point in the game, because it's an approach to puzzles that's it's specific to the game, and it's interesting. And like Matt said, that it's not an escort quest, because the definition of an escort quest is that you're babysitting someone, and that's a pain. Whereas in this case, you're going along with someone who's stronger than you are and is sort of immune to various obstacles and to various, like when a phantom sees them, they can, Zelda just goes up and chats to them. It's like, oh, how was your day? And then the phantom turns away, and you can sneak past and that kind of thing. So it doesn't feel like an escort at all, because Zelda is actually stronger than you are, I guess, and you're sort of you could really use the help.
Yeah, for sure. I do have to say, I was kind of trying to think, are there any ways mechanically that I think the Zelda buddy mechanic could be improved? Like the flow of that system could be improved. The main thing is, I think it would be really helpful and would solve a lot of my issues, especially with the precision of all of this stuff, if the action in the world around you paused while you were drawing your lines and while you were plotting Zelda's route and stuff like that.
Or just, I think the switching between characters is kind of clunky in some ways. Like, I don't like having to try to hit the dot right under Phantom Zelda to draw there. It feels like I'm hitting it, but then it like sometimes will miss, and then Link will just slash out of nowhere, and I'm like, no, that's not what I wanted to do.
Well, then sometimes you're trying to draw an arrow, and like the dead zone at the end of the screen like cuts it off before you're done.
Yep.
Right? Yeah.
Yep.
That definitely happens.
It's back to the general clunk and dislike of pure touch controls for movement that I still maintain. I don't think it's good.
Yeah.
But like,
well, it's one of those things where, again, I think we talked about this in Phantom Hourglass, but it does make me wonder if this game was to exist in a world or on a hardware with a multi-touch display instead of just this pressure single point display that the DS had. I wonder if that would have improved things at all. I feel like a more modern touchscreen system would have an easier time with this, and it would just kind of come a little bit more naturally. I think some of this really is just down to the hardware and the fact that this was a very early iteration on a technology. But yeah, I'm willing to forgive it just because it did lead to a pretty fun overall experience. And yeah, I mean, just talking about what this means for the character of Zelda too. Obviously, last week we said that this was a huge glow up for Zelda, but just seeing kind of how high of a learning curve there is on the buddy mechanic, right? Mm-hmm. Placement of Zelda, doing combat against other enemies, trying to kind of coordinate between those things, right? Like the Zola battle, where you're having to maneuver Phantom Zelda and distract the Zola so you can come around behind and slash him with your sword.
Yeah, it was rough. It was hard.
It was definitely difficult. Half of the difficulty was just because the Zola moves very quickly and is very aggressive, right? And does a lot of damage. The other half was, yeah, it sort of sucks that you're having to manage the drawing of lines to position Zelda while the Zola's like going aggro on you, right?
Yeah.
So, yeah, one of those things you can kind of solve for. The other one I think is probably a good quality for a fight like this, right? I want there to be an element of difficulty.
Yeah, the idea that it's hectic is not in itself bad. I think but if you're frustrated by the controls, then you're going to get more frustrated when the fight gets hectic. But that is not a universal experience, I guess, that not liking the controls. Personally, after having played Phantom Hourglass again more recently, I think it did help me get straight back into the groove of it for this game.
Yeah, I'm at the point where I'm tolerating it, as opposed to outright despising it. Like it's one of those things where I definitely can't call it a positive for this experience, but it's also not something that's actively ruining it for me right now. Like my issues that I'm having with Spirit Tracks at this point in the game, which I'll get into a little bit later, are really not all that. I wouldn't say any of them are mainly centered around input, around the controls and stuff like that, right?
Yeah. I imagine one of them is, if by input you mean blowing into the microphone.
Oh well, yeah, that's certainly that's a gripe. Yeah,
I still don't love touch controls as the catch-all of all interaction with the game outside of blowing on the screen, which is even worse. So like I would say that that's still not my favorite. Like I don't like it.
But I mean, to Cody's point, that means we're representing the entire range of sentiment on this system, on this show right now.
Yes.
All the way from you disliking it on one end of things, me being dead neutral in the middle, and Cody enjoying it.
Yeah,
so
that's fair. Yes.
Yeah. So there you go. I mean, we're the admittedly a very small sample size, but not enough to universally state that there is equal consensus between those 3 points among all players of Spirit Tracks. But but anywho,
I mean, I think the thing is that a lot of that is generational too. In just to, like, kids who grew up on the DS would be like this, like a fish in water, in these sorts of controls, because they would be used to it. I sort of have to get used to it, but I enjoy it once I'm a couple hours in and I've sort of gotten the hang of it.
Yeah.
I think, I don't know. I think there might be something about playing a bunch of it all at once also, that, because I think Mike had a similar experience in the Phantom Hourglass season, where he did just like 5 dungeons at once to catch up with the podcast. And by the end, he was like, oh, this is really, he was ready to rate it, like above A Link to the Past at the end of the season,
yeah, exactly.
There might be a level of just, I don't know, fluency. When you feel fluent, it just makes the entire game experience feel different.
It does, yeah. Yep.
It was really helping me this week using the left bumper to activate my item. Man, I'll tell you, I forgot about that until Lyndon mentioned it on the show last week. It makes such a big difference, man. Just like that one simple thing of it's a button and it's not the touch control. Yes.
But to that point, the only reason I knew to do that was because I did it in Phantom Hourglass. I don't think a character in Spirit Tracks has told us that that's a thing that you can do. I might have also, I have to say, I haven't explored all of the towns like building to building necessarily. So it's entirely possible that there's like the thing Zelda likes to do where it's like, oh, here's the school and you go talk to the school children and they tell you how to Z-target, you know, like it's possible that I missed that somewhere. But yeah, definitely like one of the more useful hints that this game could be giving out that I don't recall it actively giving you during your mandatory tutorial process. I feel like they probably should.
They definitely should do that.
Because it makes a huge difference. So I guess one last question about the Temple of the Ocean King I'm going to pose to each of you. Matt, are you excited to play? God.
Try again. We're going to start a counter on that.
The Spirit Temple.
No.
Nope.
No, God.
You get triple points on that one.
Yikes.
Third try. Come on, buddy.
All right, I'm going to pull that slot one more time. Triple sevens. Let's go.
And what do we got on the third one?
The Spirit Tower.
Yay.
Close enough. It's Tower of Spirits.
Dang it. Yay. Cool. All right.
Enough.
Matt, are you... jeez. Not my finest moment, but I'm going to leave it in because our listeners deserve the truth.
Yes, they do. They do.
All right. Matt, are you excited to play more of the Spirit Tower next week?
Actually, I am. I think I'm enjoying the Spirit Tower most out of the section in between temples, honestly. It feels like another mini dungeon, and I like mini dungeons.
Yeah, I agree. More dungeon is always better, right?
Amen.
More dungeon when it's the same dungeon every time, not better. This better.
This much better.
Cody, how about you? Are you excited to play more of the Spirit Tower next week?
Yeah.
Cool. As am I. Like, I think Matt, you kind of hit the nail on the head there. As we shift into our discussion about the narrative quest items that bring us to the actual Snow Temple once we leave the Spirit Tower, I think you're right. I think as just a thing that you have to do between dungeons and just rating it out of like, is it fun? Is it not fun? Am I enjoying the time I'm spending doing this, or is it just something that I'm begrudgingly kind of getting through? Spirit Tower definitely lands on the side of fun.
Yes,
would gladly do it again.
Agree. And I love getting Zelda involved.
Yeah.
Snaps all around. Oh, yes, Gatsby, you can come get pets too. Yeah, fair enough.
Sure, those can be Gatsby Gets Pet snaps. Yeah. So let's go ahead and talk about the narrative events that lead us up to the Snow Temple. We have a very similar thing that we did last week, right? Where we've unlocked partially a new area of the map. And in order to unlock the full set of spirit tracks that lead us to the temple, we have to go and talk to a lot of people. We have to go to the main village of the area. In this case, it's the Anuki village. So here's a question I have, Matt. Where are the Yuke? Did they inherit the island, or did the Anuki finally claim victory in their genocidal campaign against
I'm going to choose
the Yuke?
I'm going to choose to believe that Tetra gave the Yuke reparations and relocated the Anuki to the new island and gave the Yuke the old island.
Here's my question about this. Wasn't the Anuki village in Phantom Hourglass part of a pocket universe that was all like a dream of the not Windfish?
Oh, wait. Oh, my God. You're right.
So
where'd these guys come from?
Oh,
it's a very complicated ending, but then it's not a dream. It is a pocket dimension, I guess, but like people can come out of it into Hyrule. I think similar to Termina kind of situation, where, except in that case, it's only the Happy Mask salesman that seems to move back and forth between them. But it's a pocket dimension, but not a dream, I think.
Gotcha.
Weird.
Yeah.
Thank you for reminding me that was the ending of that game. I wiped it from my memory because of how bad it is. Wow. Yeah, this does open up a whole can of worms.
Yeah. Well, but I mean, if you go talk to some of the villagers in the Anuki village, one of them will tell you, it's like, yeah, we used to live on an island that was completely encircled by ice, and then something happened, and then some more things happened, and we ended up here, you know? So it's like, okay, you're right. Something definitely had to happen in there somewhere. You escaped the Ocean King's pocket dimension somehow. Good for y'all. I do like to believe that the Yuke are happy on that abandoned island now. They deserve it.
I would like to believe that as well, yes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Cody, do you enjoy seeing the Anuki again? I mean, to me, they were one of the goofier species that we've met in the Zelda game.
Yeah, I enjoy. Well, what I enjoy is the little type of puzzle. It's almost like a Professor Layton sort of puzzle, of the here's Steve and Amy and Jack or whatever, and each of them wants to get on the train at a different time or whatever. It's one of those little thought puzzles. And I've enjoyed that. In Phantom Hourglass, I thought that was probably one of the highlights of. That episode was definitely one of the highlights of that season, because that was the one where Mike went on a rampage and declared that me and Joshua were blood brothers separated at birth.
We were lost at sea. Yeah, you were lost at sea. Yeah.
At least I think that's the one. But that was the one.
No, Josh made it home. You're the one who got Tarzaned in Australia.
Yeah. But
definitely an episode that lives in Sacred Realms infamy.
So I don't know what's going on with the Anuki on a political level, but I think on a just game mechanics level, I do enjoy the little village mystery puzzles that they come out with.
I have to say, in terms of just the design of the Anuki, yes, I thought half man, half penguin. 1/3 man, 1/3 penguin, 1/3 reindeer.
Walrus
was a pretty weird combo.
I thought it was man, walrus, reindeer, because they have tusks.
Oh, do they?
Yeah,
you're right. They do. Okay,
so man, walrus, reindeer.
Yeah. I thought it was pretty goofy in Phantom Hourglass, and then we got to Spirit Tracks and we met train people. So
look, we're just combining people with whatever we decide is socially acceptable in some way, shape, or form.
The Locomos have definitely unseated the Anuki as the weirdest
hybrid
people in the Zelda universe for me right now.
Definitely weird hybrids.
Yeah, but I agree with you, Cody. I thought that this was a fun little puzzle. I enjoyed it actually more than the one in Phantom Hourglass.
Way more. It's also easier.
It is easier, but it's like I actually did get it wrong on the first guess.
Really?
Yeah, and then I had to go back and I was like, oh wait, I see what I did. But like, anyway, it's not overly complicated, but it's a fun little time. And it's nice because it's one of those situations where it makes a pretty good argument for why it's a great thing to have a map that's fully able to be annotated in this game. Like Phantom Hourglass had a lot of situations where it was actually pretty good at proving why being able to mark on a map was a good thing. And Spirit Tracks is just kind of continuing that whole convention. I don't think we talked about it much last week, but it's doing a really good job at giving you a lot of puzzles that are made a lot easier if you're taking advantage of that system, which I like.
Yes. I do think that of all the things that I don't like about touchscreen controls, map marking, when used well, is probably the best. I think it can be used poorly. Mostly I'm thinking about times when you have to take copious amounts of notes on things, like when you're having to write, like in Phantom Hourglass is when this happened mostly. Like you're having to write down first, second, third, or whatever. Like you're writing full words on the screen. That's when I start being like, okay, don't love this. But generally, I think it's used very well.
Okay. Yeah, I totally agree. So I don't know. Let's go around the table real quick. Cody, I'm going to start with you. We've already said that we're kind of falling into a pattern of like, these are the things you do between dungeons and Spirit Tracks. So moving on from Spirit Tower, do you think these little narrative side quests where you're having to go visit these villages and stuff, I mean, do those hold your interest as much, or is it content that you're kind of finding yourself not hating necessarily, but just sort of doing it because you have to do it?
I mean, look, I enjoy going to a new region and getting, a new version of the overworld theme, and all that kind of thing. And, here's a snow themed village. It's the Anuki, I wonder who's going to be there in, whatever quarter 3 and 4 of the map are, it's not, I don't know, not super impressed by it or anything, but I'm not put off by it.
Yeah, I think to me, the one thing that's sort of getting me most right now is that it seems like this overworld doesn't have quite the same level of exploration potential as Phantom Hourglass's overworld did, right? Like in Phantom Hourglass, there were a lot of situations where kind of sailing around the map, even though it wasn't a ton of fun, would lead to situations where you're like exploring mysterious islands, right? Things that aren't on the map and all that. And Spirit Tracks definitely is keeping you
On rails.
Keeping you on rails, moving very purposefully from one thing to another. And so far, all of the stuff, with one exception that I've found in the overworld map, has been like any location that's not the main village that you have to do that week. It's stuff that's kind of feeding into the quest that's getting you to the temple. Like we train all around the snow region this week. But none of it was really extracurricular for me. Like you kind of have to traverse all the way around it in order to progress this quest.
Yeah, I will say that Phantom Hourglass was similar at this point in the game. There hadn't been much that had opened up yet. I think we're only just now getting a few things opened up, like the stamps, the rabbits, the warp gates. But you know, it is on rails. That's what it's famous for. And so if you don't like this as an overworld, then that's going to be your main point of contention with it. And that always was the point of contention from people who wanted more open games. That was the contention with the entire era of Phantom Hourglass, Spirit Tracks, Skyward Sword, was this is too linear. And Spirit Tracks may not even be the most linear, but it is the most linear feeling because you're literally on the paths that are set for you.
Yeah, I completely agree. And I still stand by what I said last week, which is that in aggregate, I enjoy driving the train more than I enjoyed sailing the boat. Like, especially now that we have the cannon, right, which we haven't talked about yet. But in order to get over to the Anuki village, we end up getting the cannon from Alfonso. And that makes a lot of stuff a lot easier, right? I was worried that we were going to spend the whole game just kind of like yanking on the choo-choo cord to scare enemies away instead of actually fighting them.
So glad we got the cannon.
Yeah.
I mentioned it last episode. I want the big cannon, and I got my big cannon.
You got your big cannon. I still prefer the train. I will say one thing that I'm kind of having to fight against while I'm playing at this point is, even at its highest speed setting, the train still takes a while to get you from one place to another, right? Like, if this game is ever remastered, then it needs the Swift Sail equivalent for the train, right? Like the super engine or something where you just go double speed or whatever. But because of that, what I'm wanting to do is to set my DS down and just let the train go between one place and the next. Except you can't really do that because you have the enemies who are trying to plink at you the whole way.
Yeah.
And you've only got 4 hearts on the train, right?
Yeah.
So it's like if you're not paying attention, then you're getting game overed.
And that is the same issue as in Phantom Hourglass. It takes a while, but if you can't just let it go because an Octorok will appear and shoot at you or whatever. Look, I like the train better at the moment because I think the music is a big part of it. Because you can just sit there and enjoy the music and choo-choo in time with the music. I have various levels of choo-chooing that I do at various points in the song.
As do I.
That keeps me entertained. So
yeah, I agree. I like I said last week, I can still see an argument that, like, if someone wanted to make an argument that this is an inherently more boring system than Phantom Hourglass just because you have less granular control over your craft, then sure, I can still see a case to be made for that. But I am definitely enjoying it a little bit more, I think. Last week, Matt, we said we wondered if we were going to see the return of evil trains as we got in the tutorial section, right?
We did say that, and we got evil trains.
We got evil bomb trains. And I want to say, so I wasn't exactly sure sure what to expect out of these guys, right? Obviously, I was trying as hard as I could not to get hit by one because I didn't want to have to redo a section of anything. But it leads to this whole mini game when you're on the train tracks, right? Where you're having to pay attention to the movements of the bomb trains, and you're having to alter your path, occasionally potentially like reversing down long stretches of track, right, to get out of their way and not to get exploded. I was wondering what would happen if you actually did get touched by one of these things, and boy, did I find out.
Oh, yeah.
Basically what happens, it's horrifying. If the train touches you, you get insta game overed, like 100% all hearts gone, game over. And presumably Link and Zelda burn alive inside the wreckage of the spirit train.
Well, I mean, Zelda doesn't because she's a spirit, but Link definitely does.
Fire, I don't think is that good for ghosts either. But I think, what happens is basically like, because I forgot what happened. I was like, let's just run full tilt into one, and see if I can just take 2 hearts of damage or whatever, continue on. But it's like, no, this is a hard gate. You need to avoid them, at least at this point in the game. And it basically, everything stops and you see your train just completely on fire. And then like a sad version of the Overworld theme plays and it says game over. And it's very, very intense. Luckily, game over here it's not going to be like, when did you last save or whatever. It will just pick you back up at where you started your train journey or whatever.
Yeah, which can still be a big hassle depending on how close you made it to your destination, right? But it's definitely not the end of the world. Cody, do you know if there's a way to destroy the bomb trains at this point? I was kind of doing combat with one, and I got a bunch of bombs off on it, and that like it kicked into a different state, like it changed, and I thought I'd beaten it, but then it hit me and it still blew me up. So,
yeah, that happened to me too.
Okay,
so
do you know?
I haven't actually. It's been a while since I've played it, so I'm struggling to remember some of the details. Have you tried getting behind one of the trains and being the one that's being the aggressor? It may be that there's a thing on the back of the trains. I'm trying to remember.
I'm not sure. No, I have not gotten up behind the train and like pursued it with the intention of bombing it. Every time I ran into one, it ended up being like it was coming from the opposite direction, and then I kicked my train into reverse, right? And just kind of like maintained that pace while it was coming towards me and just lobbed bombs at it. But then, like I said, I thought I'd beaten it, so I kicked it back into drive.
And then
bonk, dead, flames. Oh my God, we're burning alive!
And the new guy's over the corner puking his guts out.
I can't feel my legs!
And here comes the meat wagon. Wee, woo, wee, wee. I know we did that totally out of order, but it's still hilarious.
Tommy Boy is such a freaking hilarious movie. Oh my gosh.
I hope you cut in that audio.
Yeah, I need to go searching for some MP3s for that. It's just too good not to. Rest in peace, Chris Farley. You were amazing. Anyway, so yeah.
Cannons are effective on them, but it may be that it's if you're coming directly at each other, you don't really currently have the firepower to finish it off in time.
Okay, gotcha. That's something that I'll check in on when I start playing next week's chunk. Maybe I'll go train hunting and see if I can bring one of these guys down. So TBD on that. But anyway, yeah. So we get done with the little HR quest at the Inuki village, and we make it to the snow sanctuary, and we meet another Locomos, this one by the name of Steam, and it's time for another duet. We've got to break out the spirit flute, and we've got to play some music. So here's the thing that I'm learning about these little sections so far. I still don't enjoy using the spirit flute
at all,
simply because I always feel like I'm blowing into the microphone at a consistent speed. But it seems to like lose track of the fact that I'm doing that halfway through my song a lot. It's very imprecise, and that's really annoying. I don't like it. That being said, I do think the music of these duets has been really good, actually. I think these are kind of like verging on Ocarina of Time level quality duets, like the actual pieces that you're playing.
Yes.
Yeah.
I agree. The way in which you play them sucks, but the end result of the music that is heard in your earballs is very good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right in the earballs on that.
I think so that's also what I came away with is, yes, it's the worst game mechanic for playing an instrument in the series. I don't know. No, I was thinking Skyward Sword, the harp. That's pretty bad too. But no, this is probably worse. But the actual music is some of the best. Like I love the iconic sound that the pan flute makes that you've got.
Yeah.
Just playing it because I've learned a couple of songs because it works. I don't think you've mentioned this yet, but it works similarly to Ocarina of Time in that you're learning, this is the Song of Healing, this is the Song of Awakening, and you can use it on the Gossip Stones or on various other things to get a reward or whatever. Like I had used up most of my hearts in the dungeon, and then I used the Song of Healing, and I had a one-time use voucher with a fairy, basically that said, all right, for one time I will heal you if you play this song in a dungeon.
And is that you get one heal per game over?
There's going to be more use of it in the future, but I only had one heal because I'd only found one fairy inside one of those little rockets or whatever that encourage you to play music when you come up to them.
Same.
I need to start doing more of that. So in the dungeon this week, I didn't use that song on any of those statues just because I had it in my head that they were all statues that want you to pay them 20 rupees to tell you where a chest is, right? And I don't want to do that.
Might be, but there's other shaped ones that look like little stone rockets.
Oh, right. I know what you're talking about. Yeah.
Those are the ones more likely to have something for you.
Okay. I definitely need to keep more of an eye out for that. I still, I don't mind the little 2-note songs as much. It's just that, like the imprecision of the flute playing only really bothers me when we're in this duet situation, right? Where you've got like 4 notes that you have to play at a specific cadence, and it's like counting down time while you're doing it. And anyway, it's not my favorite. Steam as a character, I think, looks pretty cool. He's definitely an older individual, right? And he looks goofy as heck just by virtue of being a Locomos, but but he plays I don't know how to pronounce this. It's biwa. I don't know. It's the traditional Japanese stringed instrument that he's playing. It's the instrument that the the Kakariko Village theme in Breath of the Wild, Tears of the Kingdom is played on, Matt. That very feudal Japanese.
Yeah, I love it. I love this instrument. I thought it was really cool.
Yeah,
I enjoyed the sound it made. Mm-hmm. It's kind of twangy.
Yeah.
Bong, 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 bong.
I know. What do you think, Cody? Is Steam going to be winning any awards for best Zelda character? Maybe top 10 list anywhere?
Look, I mean, I enjoy the Locomo. Like, generally with the Locomo, you're going to just encounter them the one time to unlock the one for their temple or whatever. But I just think all of the Locomo have fun designs, and they're all themed on train pun names.
Yeah, for sure. Steam's is definitely just a little bit more on the nose, I think, than Angene's was, which is a little bit more artfully obscured, But yeah, fun little character. Anyway, that unlocks the remainder of the Snow Realm map. And so now we're faced with the issue of having to get to the Snow Temple itself. There's a blizzard between us and the temple. And if you don't take the correct path through the blizzard, very Lost Woods style of doing things, right? You get shooped all the way back to the very beginning. How the blizzard blows your train off of one track and back onto another portion of the track, I have no idea. But it happens. So what we have to do here is go back to the Inuki village, and we get the hint that there's this guy named Ferris who's who might have an answer for how we need to get through the blizzard. That sends us off all the way to the other end of the Snow Realm map, which is where I had my first encounter with the bomb train and got exploded. But yeah, Steam is quite the student of New Hyrule history. Bit of a train nut. He knew what train we were driving right off the bat. This guy seems like the kind of dude who would go hang out at car auctions.
That's true.
Yeah, I think that's fair.
You did just call him.
He's the kind of guy that's going up to. No, go ahead, Cody.
Oh,
sorry.
I'm just saying, Lyndon did just call him Steam. I know he's struggling with all of the names of things in this episode, but just want.
I am. Did I just call? Did I call Ferris Steam?
You did.
Oh no.
Yes, Ferris is the type of guy who would go to the. What's the big car auction that's televised all the time?
Meacham?
Meacham. Yeah, he's at the Meacham Auto Show, and he's going up to every single car with and talking to anyone within earshot about every single detail of the spec sheet of that car that they're looking at.
Yeah,
so,
I mean,
it's Meacham.
He could be
Meacham,
he could be a train person in real life too, because trains are sort of famous for being one of those early, I don't know, intense fascination machines for people like train spotters and that sort of thing, who just love to catalog trains and watch trains, and all that have been around ever since trains, and they just super love trains. It's just one of those things that obviously there's car people and that too, but trains has always been an area of fascination for a lot of people.
Yeah. And so Ferris is definitely carrying the grand old hobby forward. So yeah, I definitely want to go back to his little wellspring area at some point in the future, because it was one of 2 or 3 places this week that felt pretty empty when you try to explore it, right? There wasn't much going on, but you got the impression that's like, oh, maybe you should come back here later and there might be something a little more interesting happening. Mm-hmm. I definitely saw some little branches that look like they're supposed to be traversed via like a whip or rope or hook shot or some adjacent sort of item.
Yes.
Right. Little hint probably for a key item we're going to get in a dungeon later. But
I'm getting the impression that we're going to have a lot of returning items from Phantom Hourglass, just based off of this week's item.
Well, so far we've got 1 returning item and 1 new item, and guess which one is better?
Well,
3 guesses, and it's easy.
Yeah.
I mean, to be fair, most Zelda games share about half of their item pool. Like the boomerang.
Absolutely. No. Yeah.
What game hasn't the boomerang been in?
It's actually a great question. I can't think of one.
Was it in Zelda 2?
No, because Zelda 2 only had spells.
That's right. Well, yeah.
Was it in Adventure? Or was it in The Legend of Zelda? No, just the bow.
Okay. But regardless, the point holds mostly true.
Yes.
And yeah, so I think you're right, Cody, and it would feel weird if we didn't have a lot of returning items, right? I'm happy they're bringing new items into the game. It's just, especially this week, both in the temple and out of it, you really had to mess around with the whirlwind a lot.
Yeah.
And it's just not getting any more fun.
And see, that's the funniest part, is that this is actually good design. Like, continuing to use the item from the first dungeon, in the overworld through the second dungeon is like what you want. It's just that this particular item, I know you two just never want to see again. So it's unfortunate whenever it comes up.
Yeah, I definitely think you've got us pretty figured out on that one. It's just not something that I'm enjoying a whole lot, but I do appreciate on paper the idea of what you're saying, Cody, where it's like, hey, you introduce this item and we're going to get as much use out of it as we possibly can, and potentially even give you some new use cases for it. Like, just as an idea, I think that's super solid. It's just the item itself isn't all that great. But in fairness, this is something that a lot of Zelda games have a hard time doing, right? Is giving you a lot of different reasons to use items that you've gotten before. So I guess just in concept, like we do have to give those points.
This was one of the major complaints about Twilight Princess, for example, that you couldn't do this, that you got an item in a dungeon and never used it again. And so in these games, they're quite consistent in Phantom Hourglass and Spirit Tracks with having items that are going to be useful to you for the rest of the game and interact meaningfully with the world. But yeah, it's obviously if you don't like to blow into your microphone, then you're not going to have a fun time with the little spinny thingy.
Most assuredly not. So we get through the blizzard with a little help from our friend Ferris. He shows us an old map, which we have to use, guess what, the microphone to blow clear and see the correct
Dude,
path.
when that came up again, I was like, God, they're really just absolutely going ham on the microphone. It's unreal. Someone has a fetish for this at Nintendo. Like, that's the only explanation I have. Is this is a fetish for whoever this game designer is.
It's could definitely do with less of it, but we finally get to the temple. We pick our way through the blizzard. The snow temple from the outside, once again, impressive looking building. I love the giant cartoon ice crystals, where it's not just a bunch of ice crystals together. It's like 4 massive ones.
Yeah,
you know?
they're just sticking out of the top.
Exactly right. But that's going to get us into the dungeon. Do we have anything else we want to say about the between section before we start talking about the snow temple?
Did you go to the rabbit sanctuary?
Yeah, but I'm saving that for a Bloopy Trail.
Okay, fair.
Yeah, I mean, basically, let's see. I'm just looking at my notes. I'm enjoying. I think it's great that this game is about trains. I want to say because this is something that was controversial when the game was announced. Is that people were very split on the idea that Zelda would have trains in it. I don't know if either of you were paying attention at the time to the discourse, but there was a lot of isn't Zelda meant to be medieval or this kind of thing, and then other people saying no, look, hook shots are future technology, and Zelda 2 has elevators, and there's always ancient sky civilizations and things. It's not actually. Well,
even Majora's Mask has a much more, a slightly more contemporary feeling world, right? Like it doesn't have a castle. It's got a town with a mayor. It doesn't have a king. It's got a rock band. All those things. So
yeah, but the train just sort of was as your replacement for Epona, basically. It wasn't an odd choice, but I think they've ran with it the best way they could by having good music, having the ability to go choo-choo, which is still my favorite part of riding the train. So, yeah.
Oh, yeah. Oh, it's great. Like, it makes me wonder how much more I would have liked sailing in Phantom Hourglass if the boat had like a boat horn.
Yeah, and there was fantastic new music for the Phantom Hourglass overworld, and you could honk the horn in time with it. Like, that would have significantly improved Phantom Hourglass.
I think you're right about that. Cody, have you ever been train spotting?
Not in particular. I know the difference between a few different trains, but mostly, look, I appreciate trains. I appreciate public transport. And, and in that way, I guess Spirit Tracks really hits for me thematically because evil politicians are trying to take away public transport and turn New Hyrule into a car-centric place where there's no sidewalks. We know that, in car-centric towns. So, walking, cycling, trains, that's important, and we can't let Chancellor Cole take it away from us. That's my public service announcement.
I should have known that you, being the most powerful of all political individuals in Australia, would have had a specific opinion about the municipal transport situation in New Hyrule. And I take your opinion with a little bit more weight than I do anyone else's, Cody. So there you go. I agree. The fact that the train is in this game and the fact that it is somewhat out of place from what we consider the classic Zelda look and feel is something that just hasn't really been bothering me very much. And I wonder if that's because I'm playing this game for the first time in a post like Tears of the Kingdom, Breath of the Wild world, right? Like the definitions of like what you can do in a Zelda game have started to broaden just a little bit.
Yeah, I agree completely. Like, I thought that it would annoy me, but really the train and just the whole the aspect of what New Hyrule is with the track system and everything, I just kind of am taking it at face value, and it's not really bothering me in any way.
You know what I'm feeling about New Hyrule, Matt?
What are you feeling, Lyndon?
To me, it feels like the difference between Avatar: The Last Airbender's world and The Legend of Korra's world.
It feels very much Republic City.
Yeah. Like it's been 100 years, right? There's been some development, in that time. They've progressed from, medieval seafarers all the way up to people who have industry and the capacity to produce steam-based locomotion. So good for them. It just makes sense.
I would love to see a steel factory in New Hyrule. Have yet to see one. Where do they make the trains?
Seems like that would make a pretty good dungeon.
Doesn't it?
It's a steel factory.
Doesn't it?
I don't think there's a dungeon called the Steel Factory in Spirit Tracks, but it's a good idea, Matt, and I'm co-signing it.
Well, there should be.
All right. Well, I think that brings us to the end of our discussion about this section of the game generally. Let's go ahead and talk more specifically about this week's dungeon. We do that every week in part 3, which is the dungeon map, where we talk about this week's dungeon from mechanics to music and more. Dungeon of the week is the Snow Temple. And this is a dungeon that has a much more purposeful layout than ones that we've seen previously in Spirit Tracks or Phantom Hourglass. It is a somewhat symmetrically arranged dungeon in that it's split between a central area and then a right and a left area. The entire crux of the dungeon is that you have to slide 3 differently sized bells into the central area. Striking the bells in a certain sequence will open various doors, which allow you further into the dungeon. The main item of the dungeon is the boomerang. The boss of the dungeon is Froz. Enemies that we fight in the dungeon include Fire Keese, Freezards, Ice Chews, Ice Keese, Regular Keese, Octaves, which is the only enemy that I didn't know the name of. They're the blue guys that pop up out of the water. We've got regular old Octoroks, and then we've got White Wolfos, which I don't know that we've actually ever had Wolfos in a top-down Zelda game before. I really enjoyed seeing them this week.
Yeah, I thought they were pretty cool. They're kind of annoying to fight, but yeah, I thought it was cool to see them in a top-down.
Yeah, the spin attack is the key to taking these guys down.
Yes, it is.
So, but anyway, that's the dungeon kind of in a very small little nutshell. Cody, I'm going to send it over to you first. How do you feel about the Snow Temple?
Look, I like it. It's got a few things that... Look, it's your classic ice dungeon. Like, if there are things that you don't like about ice dungeons, for example, block pushing puzzles, where you push the block all the way along and have to sort out what to do with it, then you're out of luck, because it's that kind of traditional ice dungeon. But I thought that this was a really fun use of the boomerang, particularly around turning the water into ice and then creating paths.
Yeah, I completely agree with that. And it is difficult because, like you're saying, Cody, this is basically sliding ice block dungeon to a T. And I know we just got done talking about this a few weeks ago in the Temple of Droplets and the Minish Cap, right? It's neither Matt's nor my favorite thing. I think with the Snow Temple, the sliding block puzzles were bothering me less than just the slippery floors. I think slippery floors may be taking the place of sliding block puzzles as the great crime of ice dungeons to me.
Preach.
Especially in this game, because it's very easy to just slide off the edge of the ice and into the water. And in Spirit Tracks, going in the water docks half a heart, right? It's one of those, like, there are 2 types of Zelda games, or I guess there's 3 types of Zelda games. There's Zelda games where you can swim, because why wouldn't you be able to?
Of course.
There's Zelda games where you can't swim by default and falling in the water doesn't injure you. And then there's Zelda games where you can't swim and falling in the water does injure you. And that, my friends, is my least favorite kind of Zelda game right there. It's unnecessarily punishing. And especially in a dungeon like this where you're doing a lot of like trying to run around quickly before your ice paths dissolve, and like you're maybe not being as careful as you otherwise would want to be, and you go just shoot right off into the water, start losing some hearts. It's just not my favorite thing. How about you, Matt? Did some of our favorite ice dungeon tropes unduly bother you this week?
Being frozen solid by ice enemies is probably my least favorite thing.
Okay.
Like, anytime the ice keys or the ice chews or the main boss hits you with an ice attack, you're just stuck. And unlike in other Zelda games where it's like wiggle the joystick or hit A or B, it's draw really fast with your stylus and rub it. And I'm like, I don't want to rub it. Don't ask me to rub it for you. I don't want to rub it for you. It was very uncomfortable and awkward, and don't love it. I don't like that at all. So all that's bad. The sliding block puzzles didn't actually bother me so much, mostly because they were very simple.
Yeah.
And then when they weren't simple, it included the mechanic, like Cody mentioned, of using the ice fire, the blue fire, to freeze water, and that was really cool. I thought that was very inventive, very well designed from a puzzle standpoint, and was really engaging as a new type of mechanic to add into just sliding a block around. So like all of that kind of came together to be like, this actually made it not bad.
Yeah. Let's talk about the boomerang for a minute, because we all really enjoyed the boomerang in Phantom Hourglass, I think. The mechanics of it are not changed here in Spirit Tracks at all. It's the exact same. You equip it, you draw a line, the boomerang goes where you draw the line. You can use it to pick stuff up, obviously, but you can also use it to carry stuff around, to move flames from one torch to another, etc. Obviously, that comes with new mechanics in Spirit Tracks because, like you said, Matt, we've got the ice blue fire here, which is capable of freezing water. Cody, how do you like this version of the boomerang, and do you think that the extra mechanics we get with it are an improvement on what we had in Phantom Hourglass?
Yeah, look, I think it's an improvement, which is impressive because this may already be the best boomerang in the Zelda series, the Phantom Hourglass one. And to have it become something that you can use to walk on water is, a really fun extra thing to add. It's really nice to see them continue to iterate, even though it is an item that works the same as in Phantom Hourglass. They've invented new use cases for it, which I think is good.
Yeah, I completely agree. How about you, Matt?
Yeah, I don't have much to add. I think that sums it up in my opinion. Still good. Still the best use of the touchpad controls, the best use of drawing, unless we get bomb chews again. Yeah. All around excellent.
The thing that I really enjoyed about this was the process of making ice paths is something where you have a lot of flexibility with the shape of the path that you can draw, right? And so in a lot of these areas where there's just a big room full of water, it allows you to really do some free roam with that mechanic, right? And to really explore the space of the room. It's very flexible, and it's actually a really fun process to do as well. Like there's something, it's kind of the opposite of why Power Washing Simulator is fun, right? It's like that, but in reverse,
Yeah, that's totally right.
It's like you're creating, you're filling the space instead of like emptying it of things. But I thought it was a really, really great time. And there were, even going past the frozen walking on water situation, there were a lot of puzzles in this dungeon that that required you to use an interesting variety of like timing, hitting a fire torch and hitting an ice torch, right? And then moving them between different targets at a different cadence.
Yeah, I think my favorite puzzle in this dungeon was where you had the blue fire and the red fire, and then you had to light the 6 other torches in a certain sequence, some of them blue, some of them red fire. Like I thought that was really, really well done. And you had to do it the right way because the boomerang can't double cross its path. So you had to do it in a circuitous kind of way. It was just very, very well done. So I think this dungeon made extremely good use of the boomerang and its capabilities.
Yeah. On a lot of those puzzles, I found myself doing this thing where I don't even know why I fell into this mode, but what I was doing was I would see ice torches and I would see fire torches. And I would equip the boomerang, try to hit the fire torches, and then do a separate thing to try and hit the ice torches, right? And it took a while before I just kind of like burned it into my muscle memory of like, no, you got to try and get it all in one thing.
Yep, that's right.
Yeah. And that comes into play at several different places in this dungeon as well as in the boss fight. But I don't know. I really like this. I think that this makes for a very interesting replacement to fire and ice arrows. Is a boomerang that's just able to move those two elements kind of around the space from an origin point. It's got a little bit less flexibility, I think, than fire and ice arrows do just necessarily, but I do think that it's a fun replacement of that mechanic. Cody, I mean, do you think? I mean, am I drawing a correct comparison in your mind? Like, do you think that this is the kind of thing that's like, oh yeah, this is this game's version of what you do with fire and ice arrows, and you know, it's either more interesting or less interesting, but at least a comparable thing.
Yeah, I mean, I think I prefer this to something like fire and ice arrows in the sense that I probably prefer the puzzle is in the room with you kind of thing. Like, you're presented with a room and it's got these various factors. It's got, a fire torch, it's got an ice torch, it's got an empty torch, and you have to figure out how to use your items to get around it rather than sorting through your inventory to be like, do I need the fire arrows or the ice arrows or that kind of thing. Like, I think the sort of internal puzzle rather than the just carry around 30 things with you and figure out which one you want to use at this given time, I think I might prefer a bit better.
Yeah, it's a one-size-fits-all solution for sure. Were there any particular frozen or freezing water puzzles that took you a minute to figure out, Matt, that you sat around and were just like, what's the correct way for me to do this?
Not really. I felt like they signposted it well enough that it wasn't like, duh, but also wasn't like, what? So it walked that fine line between duh and what.
The one that kind of got me was the room where
that's
you
our
have
new
to
scale, by the way.
From duh to
and what? Yeah.
Okay, cool. I like that scale. It's it leaves a lot of room for interpretation too, which makes it interesting.
It's all in the tone. It's all in the tone.
Exactly. So the one that kind of got me was the room where you have to push the big bell into the center room. Yeah. It's the final bell you have to move, and in that room you have the bell, which is on a sliding block platform puzzle, right? Yeah. And then you've got a bunch of water between you and the little ice hallway that moves it into the next room. And so you basically have just got to line it up correctly so that you can create an ice pathway across the water for it to move down into that central room. And it took me a minute to kind of figure out how to line things up in here. I spent a few minutes too long thinking that I was able to do it one way and just trying to time a bunch of different ice paths, like moving between all of them, and then falling in the water a lot and it not working because that's not the way that I was supposed to do it. Right. Finally figured it out and realized that it wasn't as complicated as I was trying to make it.
Yeah, no, that's fair. That is one of the traps that puzzles like this can pull you into, is overthinking or overcomplicating, making too many moves when really there's a simple path to the solution. So
why make more move when less move do good?
Yeah. Okay, Kevin from The Office.
Yeah, right. Yeah, exactly. Thank you. I'm glad. I love it when you pick up on my references.
I generally speaking do most of the time. Yes.
Yeah. How about you, Cody? Was there any part of this dungeon that gave you any issue?
I think, just the I don't know. It took me a little while to do some of the ice block puzzles and things. Wasn't so much an issue so much as it took me 2 or 3 attempts on one of them. I think. I think in general, I did like about this dungeon that it did have a bit of a theme going with the bells and bringing the bells together. Because I think that's probably what was missing from the introductory dungeon, was something that sort of makes it feel like it's one cohesive puzzle that you're solving. With it has a central room and it has the bells, and as you bring in more bells, more of the central room's doors unlock and that kind of thing. I quite enjoyed that.
Yeah, I did as well. And it leads me to one of my main points about this dungeon, especially comparing it to last week's and most all the dungeons of Phantom Hourglass. I was saying last week how I appreciate a dungeon that has an intentionality to its layout, right? Like it doesn't just feel like a completely random amalgamation of rooms that they slap together and we're just like, hey, there's a puzzle in this room, puzzle in this room, puzzle in this room, but they're not interconnected. This dungeon is one that does have a main mechanic that runs through the whole thing. Cody, like you're saying, it's the bells and the whole system of unlocking more of the dungeon by assembling more of those bells in a room together. And I really liked that. This is something that I've really been missing in these last two games, Phantom Hourglass and Spirit Tracks, and was really happy to see it make a return here. How about you, Matt? Was that difference perceptible to you at all?
Yes, no, absolutely. The thing that was missing from most dungeons in Phantom Hourglass and from our last dungeon in Spirit Tracks, for the first dungeon, I guess, was it was nebulous. It was kind of general. This one was not that. It definitely had a sense of purpose, and it really dove into a sense of place that most of the dungeons in these two games have not had so far. Like, again, outside of Cobblestone Kingdom and Temple of the Muto's Temple. Thank you. Like those two temples obviously were a tier above, but this kind of got in that vein of purpose, place, and focus.
Yeah. Cody, do you think that this dungeon does sort of feel like it could have come out of a different Zelda game, especially as compared to the dungeons in Phantom Hourglass and the one last week?
I mean, I don't think it's actually that different, as opposed to just some of the things have come together more cleanly. Like when the episode I was on for Phantom Hourglass, which was the fire dungeon, we talked about basically, there wasn't much of a theming to it. It was just sort of vaguely fire themed, but there were themes to the puzzles. Like there was a particular puzzle, there was a particular aspect of the puzzle that was like, up, down, right, left, or whatever it was, and you sort of had to remember that, and you had increasingly difficult iterations of that puzzle until you reached the finale. And so that sort of thing has been in there, but it's, it does, that's not to say that dungeon had good puzzles and had a major puzzle that tied it all in together, but it didn't necessarily have a sense of place in the same way that, like, I know the Phantom ship, you both didn't really click that much with because it was a bunch of mechanics from the Temple of the Ocean King, but that was the most thematic dungeon in that game. There was nothing like that.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
I think Cody remembers our seasons better than we do. Honestly, I forgot that was our main complaint about the ghost ship.
It is all kind of coming back to me now. I don't want to say I've tried to block as much of Phantom Hourglass from my memory as I can, but I think it's probably more accurate to say that I've freed up that space for other things.
Hey, that's a good way of putting it.
Yeah,
Yes.
There you go. But no, you're totally right.
Yeah, in general, look, I have. You didn't ask me this at the start, but I do have Spirit Tracks higher than Phantom Hourglass on my personal list. It's not
How much higher?
Not much higher because, well, as you know from your list, once you get much higher than this, you have to contend with like the original Legend of Zelda and games like that, And there's a world in which Spirit Tracks could be above the original Legend of Zelda for me. But I don't know. I think it's made several improvements that you would have noticed from Phantom Hourglass. There are several things that they got feedback from Phantom Hourglass and they made good on it. They turned the Temple of the Ocean King section from being the most dreaded part of the game into being a part of the game that you look forward to. They've done various things, but fundamentally there's still going to be stuff like the blowing into the microphone mechanics and all this kind of thing that you're going to sigh at.
Yeah. I actually don't think your assertion that there could be an argument where Spirit Tracks is up against The Legend of Zelda in a ranking. I don't necessarily think that's the craziest thing I've ever heard in my life. I think you could, at least as of right now, I think that I can see shades of where an argument could be made there. I think one of the things that sort of comes down to is so far Spirit Tracks is feeling like a much more intentional and confidently made game than Phantom Hourglass did. I think it has a lot of confidence in some things that it probably should have taken another look at, right? But it's like there is an intentionality here, and there's a level of polish to this world that I think wasn't necessarily present in Phantom Hourglass. And I think that's to be expected, right? Because you've got the same team working on both games, and they've got all the context that they had from the previous one, you know?
Yeah, and I think it can also stand on its own a little more. Like, I think the biggest sin of Phantom Hourglass is being a worse Wind Waker. Basically, like, you have the sailing mechanic, and it's, you know, it's whatever on its own, but you think, oh, I loved the Wind Waker. You had cool music while you were sailing, and you could do this and that. And, oh, Phantom Hourglass, you know, it doesn't have original music. You're sort of comparing it unfavorably to, like, a game that I have in, like, my top 3 Zelda games, and that sort of, you know, that works on a main console and not on a handheld and all this kind of thing. Like, I think Phantom Hourglass isn't necessarily that much worse. A lot of people put Phantom Hourglass higher than Spirit Tracks. That's just not my personal view. I think it depends on what kind of thing. If you're more frustrated by the trains than you are by the sailing Phantom Hourglass, for example, you're going to enjoy Phantom Hourglass's overworld more. But
yeah, for sure.
And honestly, I think if you'd played Phantom Hourglass after Spirit Tracks, which would have been an odd way to do it, but I think you might have come away a bit more positive on Phantom Hourglass in some respects, like the controls, just because some of the stuff with the controls is you're never going to like it if you just don't like it, but it can turn from a 2 out of 10 into a 5 out of 10 just from having had more experience with it.
Yeah, well, and I think just from a story standpoint, too, so far Spirit Tracks is setting itself up as being one of the better standalone Zelda games that you could just play in a vacuum, right?
Yeah.
Phantom Hourglass relied a whole lot on the story of Wind Waker, right? Where Spirit Tracks is definitely doing a little bit of that, but it's only really there if you're looking for it, and if you already know that. It's not required.
Yeah, and look, a lot of the games around this time, Phantom Hourglass, Twilight Princess, Spirit Tracks, are going to have a sort of some good stuff at the start and some good stuff at the end. Well, depending on what you think of Phantom Hourglass's end, but but sort of a quiet period in the middle where you're just sort of doing the basics, going to the town, visiting a new group of people, but you haven't necessarily heard much from your villainous crew.
Yeah,
and this game already has a better villainous crew than Phantom Hourglass because it didn't really have one. It had whatever his name was. I've already forgotten the name of the final boss of Phantom Hourglass.
Oh gosh, Bellum.
Bellum, that's right. I knew it was
right.
B-E-L something.
Something sounds like a Pokemon. But
actually, it does. Bellossom.
Yeah.
Beldum is a Pokemon.
Yeah, that's probably the one I was thinking of. But like
evolves into Metagross.
Yeah, and I'll warn you ahead of time. Don't expect too much more out of the scary train man than you did out of Bellum. The Demon King character isn't going to be the character that you're going to be, emotionally invested in. It's going to be these characters like Chancellor Cole, who you can love to hate, a sort of, Joffrey like figure who you see him and you shake your fist and you say, what an annoying little leprechaun you are,
He is an annoying little leprechaun.
But yeah, that was just, I know we're in the boss section, but that was just various thoughts.
Yeah, we did take a bit of an aside from the dungeon, but before we talk about Froz and the boss fight, Matt, do you have anything else that you want to say about the Snow Temple?
I really like how they hid the tones or the way in which you need to play the bells. So, you have to double tap the first one, then you have to go middle, high, high, middle, and then for the third one it's low, middle, high, middle. And like the way that they hid those around the dungeon, I thought was really clever. The third one took me a little while to find because I didn't want to go outside the main room because I was kind of afraid it would reset the bell. I don't know why I was afraid of that, but I was. So eventually I just kind of was like, all right, I guess I have to explore that. And uncovering it by melting the snow was really, really clever. I liked that a lot. So I think that specific aspect of it worked really well for me also.
Yeah, melting snow with a fire boomerang in. Blowing snow off an old map with the microphone out.
Yes, definitely.
All right, well, let's go ahead and talk about the boss fight. The boss is Froz, who... I'm actually going to click on this link real quick. I wasn't entirely sure what Froz is. He's kind of a Poe looking deal, but also looks a little bit like a ferret or like a...
He looks a lot like the genie enemy from both Wind Waker and Phantom Hourglass.
Yeah.
The Poe genie guy.
Yeah, I can kind of see that. I have no idea what Froz is, but regardless, this is a boss fight that I had a freaking blast with. This to me was a really, really fun boss fight. It's a very fun iteration on the Twin Rova style boss fight, right? Where whenever Froz is possessed with fire energy, you have to hit it with ice and vice versa. And just the various phases that Froz goes through, I think it was nice because it required you to sort of stay on your toes, right? It's a boss fight that sort of teaches you the way that it's going to do things as you go through it. And it gets gradually more and more complex as you go through the entire boss fight. Like at the beginning of the fight, it's easy. You've got 2 torches, right? 1 fire and 1 ice. And it's pretty self-explanatory. You just have to move the boomerang into the right one and then hit Froz with it. But before long, the torches are gone, and you've got to rely a little bit more on Froz actually shooting the energy that you need at you and then using that. Then you've got the whole system where Froz splits into 2 little tiny mini Froz dudes, and you've got he splits into a fire and an ice one, and you've got to hit them with the correct elements, It was a fight that had kind of a lot going on, but I really enjoyed. I mean, a lot of that is just down to how fun the boomerang is to use in situations like this. But yeah, I actually felt a little bit of challenge with this one. You got to keep moving. If you get hit, it does quite a bit of damage to you. If you're not doing things quickly enough, then Froz is recovering from his immunity phase and he's starting to wallop you,
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. How about you, Matt?
Yeah, no, I thought it was very well designed. I think I was a little bit frustrated by it, mostly because I was having a hard time moving fast enough to avoid some of his attacks. I had to use a red potion and my heal fairy to stay in this fight. I almost died twice because I could not get out of the blast radius, specifically of the ice attack, fast enough. I don't know. Yes, I was trying to do that, and I felt like my stylus was lagging almost, and so I think it was a me problem more than it was a game problem.
So there is something weird that's happening in this arena where
it's moving slower than normal, right?
It's a big space, and so I think you're moving as fast as you normally are relative to the space that you're in, but you're zoomed out a little bit, and there's more room, right? Mm-hmm. So I think it feels slower. I definitely felt what you were talking about, Matt.
Okay, it's not just me.
It definitely feels just a little bit mushy compared to normal.
Yeah, it's a lot less crisp. Not to say that the movement in this game is crisp, but it was even less so than normal. So that was a little bit frustrating because I felt like most of the time that I was getting hit wasn't because I was doing anything wrong. I knew what was about to happen and I knew how to avoid it, but I just couldn't get Link to get out of the way fast enough. So that was the only point of frustration I really had. Also, I still have sometimes a hard time with do I release the left bumper when I throw the boomerang, or do I keep holding it down? And sometimes I would accidentally release it so the boomerang would go away mid-flight and then it wouldn't hit him. And that, again, me problem, not a game problem, not a design problem, but just like a dang it. I keep like, it was one of those things. It's like, dang it, stupid, blah, but all that being said, I do think this was a very well-designed fight. I think it was very clever. I thought it was I immediately thought of Twin Roba whenever, the fire and the ice were flying around and you have to use the opposite. I was like, yeah, this is great. I love this fight. I love this type of fight. And I thought it was done very well. The dual screen, which is something we have always loved about boss fights in both Phantom Hourglass and Spirit Tracks, was used a little bit less here, kind of similar to one or two of the bosses in Phantom Hourglass as well, where you're using it mostly to track which mini version you need to be hitting at the moment, like which one is ice and which one is fire. So a little bit less utilization than the flashy, showy, double screen, cinematic, I guess is not exactly the right way to put it. But
yeah.
No, I thought it was very well done. I enjoyed it quite a lot.
Cody, how are you feeling about this fight?
Yeah, I think it's a fun fight. This one is also a callback to a boss in Phantom Hourglass. I don't know if you remember or if it's all been wiped from your memory, but when I was on last season, instead of Fraz, for the Fire Temple, we had a boss called Blaz, who turned into multiple smaller creatures. And there was a similar mechanic here where you could use the top screen to identify which of the little ones was the fire element one and which one was the ice element one. It told you on the top screen. Whereas in the first game, that mechanic was that because you had to hit them with the certain order, I think with the boomerang, like 1, 2, 3, and it told you which order it was on the top screen. So yeah, it's a variant on a boss from Phantom Hourglass, but I think they've done a lot of cool stuff, and I think it's a real step up in difficulty. Like I know the first dungeon in Spirit Tracks was a bit of a sort of 20-minute introductory dungeon, but this one really tested you a little bit, and I thought it was a lot of fun.
I think that the music in the Fraz boss fight is one of the really great boss themes in the Zelda series. I really, really liked this music. I don't know if I liked it as much as like Mulgara, for instance, but it is a really great one. And I actually recognized it instantly from Symphony of the Goddesses. Every now and again, they would play like a medley of boss fight music, and this one kind of snuck in there once or twice. And so I picked up on it immediately. And yeah, I really think it's just a great piece of music. Did you clock that, Matt?
I did not actually. So good ears on your part.
You'll have to go back and listen to it. I think you'll appreciate it. It's definitely the most distinctive piece of music in Spirit Tracks so far to me, outside of the overworld theme.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. I'll have to go give it another listen.
How about you, Cody? Is that something you picked up on?
Yeah, a bit. I wasn't paying super close attention to the music, but I think in general, Spirit Tracks has quite a good soundtrack.
Cool. Well, I think that brings us to the end of the boss fight, right? We defeat Fraz, we unlock another Force gem, and yeah, now we have a spirit track that is going to take us back to the Spirit Tower for the next section of the game. Any last thoughts that anybody wants to say about the Snow Temple before we move on?
Much better temple than our first experience of temples and Spirit Tracks.
Yeah. Yep. Absolutely, 100% agree.
Yeah, I think around this era, Nintendo was a bit, I don't know, they love to coddle you a bit. And I feel like the first dungeon was even easier than usual for a first dungeon.
Yep.
But that's not an indicator of the rest of the game.
Well, that's good to hear, because that first dungeon was impressing nobody. Especially not us. All right, well, let's go ahead and move on to part 4, which is Bloopy Trails, where we talk about interesting things that diverted our attention this week. Matt, you want to kick us off with your Bloopy Trails?
Yeah, I did one or two this week. I went and did the combat gauntlet minigame, the knock 'em down minigame, which is run by not Jolene, but the same character model as Jolene from Phantom Hourglass, which was a really fun callback for me. I thought that was quite funny. So I did that one, completed it, got a piece of heart for it. So huzzah, or a heart container, because they're not pieces of heart, they're full heart containers. I went and visited Rabbit Sanctuary, which was interesting. So I got my little rabbit catching net, and I unsuccessfully attempted to catch a rabbit once, and then I was like, maybe I'll work on that some other time.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I also made it to the Rabbit Sanctuary, which I thought was just one of the goofiest places that we've ever been in a Zelda game.
The guy who runs that really creeps me out. Did not like.
But he is true in that the love of frolicking with bunnies is an almost universal thing, right?
It's true. Frolicking with bunnies does sound fun.
Yeah, he asked me if I was down to frolic with the bunnies, and I had only one answer to that question because there is only one answer. Yeah. The bunnies are cute. This guy, creepy. Bunnies are adorable, though. I do have to say, bunny collecting was not on my bingo card for like major side quests in a Zelda game, but I'm here for it. I'm willing to see what kind of journey it takes me on. I caught one bunny this week. Got it from behind a boulder in the snow area. So, it's one of those things where as I'm moving from one place to the next, I'll be paying attention for bunnies. I'm going to see where this whole side quest takes me. This was the
Did
main
you get stamps. Did you get the stamp book?
Yeah,
from Nico?
I did get. I think you have to get the stamp book.
Oh, do you?
Yeah, you've got to go talk to Nico in order for you to then go get the cannon. Like,
okay.
You go back to Aboda town and Aboda village, excuse me, and it's one of those things where Alfonso's like, "Oh, I'm going to put a cannon on your train, but come back in a little while."
So you got to go talk to
Nico.
Yeah,
so
okay.
yeah, you do get the stamps. Still no idea what you get from doing this, but now that every time I see one of those little stamp pedestals, it's like, yeah, okay, I've got a book for that. I'll go do it.
Also, I'm really glad this wasn't just a 3DS online thing like I was afraid it was going to be.
Yeah, exactly. So I am still curious, though. I'm seeing a lot of signs around towns that are referencing a battle system, and I don't know what that is, and that kind of reeks of Wi-Fi shenanigans to me, like no longer available to play in this game. Cody, do you know anything about that?
So I think if you remember when you first start up your DS and put in Spirit Tracks, it asks you to go, do you want adventure mode or battle mode? And there are that is a multiplayer mode with it's like it's the 4 different colored links thing from Four Swords, basically. And you can play in multiplayer mode where you collect Force gems and all that kind of thing. But yeah, I think you may still have. I'm not sure if it still functions because I don't remember exactly how it works, because it may be that you can do something locally, but it may also require an internet connection.
Okay. Well,
but it's not that's not necessary for the game. Phantom Hourglass had an entire mode where it was like Link versus Phantoms and all this kind of thing. So they've been adding these little multiplayer modes to a lot of the handheld games. Like Four Swords was just a random addition to the GBA version of A Link to the Past originally, for example.
Yeah. And I'm playing almost none of them. I probably won't find much of a chance to interact with this little thing either. I'll do some research on it and see if there's an easy way that you could enjoy it outside of an internet connection, but definitely not holding my breath. But, as far as Bloopy Trails generally are concerned, aside from the Rabbit Sanctuary, I didn't really do much this week. I've got kind of a recurring point of feedback with Spirit Tracks at the moment, which is that it's not doing a whole lot to shepherd me towards side questable things, right? The rabbit sanctuary is kind of right on your way to the snow area. So it's kind of tough to miss. But I'm finding that like once you're in towns and things, there's just not a whole lot of, I don't know, there's not a whole lot of intentional maneuvering towards bloopy trailable topics as we get with a lot of other Zelda games, right? Have you noticed that to be true, Matt?
Yeah, I think that's true. I think I'm hoping that doesn't hold true through the rest of the game, I guess is what I'm going to say. It's true right now. So we'll see how that ends up is where I'm going to leave it for now.
Mm-hmm. Do you think that this is...
Look, you've come from probably the best iteration of side quest adventures in a Zelda game, in a handheld Zelda game, in the Minish Cap. Where everything's a kinstone and every NPC has a name and a little biography and all that kind of thing. And that's going to be hard to top, but mostly this game is going to be what you expect. There's going to be some mini games. There's going to be the stamps. There's going to be the rabbits, etc. There's going to be some optional stuff to, gain some new abilities and that kind of thing. But yeah, it's more of a traditional model. Like rabbits are basically equivalent to like golden skulltulas, for example.
Gotcha. And I did not actually uncover the warp point bloopy trail this week, so
yes.
I guess I need to go look harder for that.
Yeah, I don't even know what that is. Cool. I'll have to go look around for that then.
So, so I did unlock one. The warp points are those gates that look almost skyward swordy that you sort of pass through sometimes on your train?
Yeah, for sure.
Right, so those are the warp points. But you'll need to... You couldn't have interacted with them before you got your cannon or all this kind of stuff, but you'll notice more of them as you go.
All right.
Okay. That'll be something to keep an eye on. All right. Well, let's go ahead and get into part 5, which is Z targeting, where we lock on to fascinating characters or enemies that we happen across. Matt, who's your Z targeting pick for the week?
Oh, God. I'm going to go with the proprietor of the Knock 'em Down game because I like to believe that it's just Jolene in another life. Look, man, Jolene was a really cool character from Phantom Hourglass. I'm glad to see at least her character sprite back. She's got kind of the same spunky personality. I mean, she's running a combat gauntlet minigame. So, I like to believe that Jolene made her way out of the Pocket Universe and her descendants are living their best lives. Maybe maybe her and Linebeck ended up back together and now their descendants are running the Knock 'em Down minigame.
Oh, there you go. That's a happy thought. I like that for Linebeck. How about you, Cody? Who's your Z targeting pick for the week?
Yeah, and look, you're going to see more characters that look mysteriously identical to characters from Phantom Hourglass because that's just...
Reused assets.
They used assets like Majora's Mask, the terrible asset flip Zelda game that nobody likes.
Exactly.
Yeah, nobody likes that game. Oh, my goodness.
Well, we'll see. We'll see when we get to that season who likes it. But I'm going to give a shout out to my friend Staven.
Oh, just Staven. Steven
Staven. Please expound upon your love of this character for us. No
idea.
Can't place him.
You have no idea who this is?
Nope.
No idea.
Okay. So this is... In the American version of the game, his name is Burn. So this is a little bit of trivia that I wanted to cover, is that around this era, the names were all over the place. Like they didn't have a consistent translation for the names. If you go to any character in Spirit Tracks, you'll find like 5 different, majorly different translations depending on the region. They didn't really have a consistency. But Burn is a particularly odd one because European English and American English have two different names for him, which is odd. Usually the European translation is not so different that they've got different characters, different character names. So this is so Spirit Tracks. If you go to zeldawiki.wiki and look at character names from Spirit Tracks, you'll find that it will say this is their name in English, Japanese, Canadian French, and European French, which had two different translations and everyone's named different things. European Spanish and Latin American Spanish have different names for most of the characters. German, Italian, the local translators just did their own thing. Stephen is just an odd one on that, because like Chancellor Cole, for example, is the same in both versions of the English translation, but is various different names, various different train-related puns in other languages. Burn, Staven, in Japanese, he was what looks like it's Diego. It might have been going for Diego, which is what the translation is in Latin American Spanish. There's Traukmar, Freisel, Deloc, Trist Alpin. That's the Italian version. Just an odd little quirk, but he's a fun character, despite being a confusing character for when we were originally covering this for Zelda Universe. To have a character that just depending on what region you were in, you knew him by a different name was an odd one to deal with.
Yeah, it's something that happens a lot in the series. Even pretty recently, I was reading an article the other day and someone was mentioning a character in Tears of the Kingdom that I had no idea who they were talking about. And it turns out that they were talking about Tulin, who has another name in another localization of the game. So, and a really interesting little quirky thing that Zelda does sometimes. But definitely looking forward to seeing a little bit more from Burn/Staven as we go further into the game, because he made a pretty cool early impression. My Z targeting for the week is actually going to be, I feel like I haven't done a boss in a while, but I'm going to go with Froz. I think Froz was one of the more fun boss fights that we've had in recent memory. I really enjoyed it. It's the culmination of a lot of things sort of coming together to create a fun experience between the mechanics and the design of the character, the arena, the music. It's all great, and I enjoyed it quite a bit. So Froz is going to be my Z targeting this week, and Ferris was a close second. So
there you go.
Because there were things about that character that I identified with as a hobbyist of things, right?
You are a man of many hobbies.
I am.
Not as many as our dear friend Adam Schwalm. But
not as many as him.
I don't think anyone has as many hobbies as
No, definitely not. All right, let's get into part 6, which is our final thoughts, where we let Matt wrap up this section of the game in as succinct a way as he can think to do.
So we enter this section of game getting back into the familiar pattern of Tower of Spirits, new map area, opening the sanctuary into a temple. We progress through the Tower of Spirits, enjoying our time with Zelda and Phantom Zelda, moving into the snowy area and the town of the Anukis, revisiting our genocidal friends who are less genocidal this time around, thankfully, helping them out with their various things that they need done, moving on, meeting some interesting characters along the way like Ferris, into the ice temple of this game, enjoying it thoroughly from the mechanics to the purposeful way that the temple is laid out and the way in which you interact with it, and getting a really great item back in the boomerang and enjoying it to its fullest with all the many wonderful mechanics that this temple has to offer. Topping it all off with a really fun boss fight that reminds us fondly of good old Twin Rova from Ocarina of Time, and looking forward to our next section of game.
All right. Well, this would usually be the end of the Sacred Realms rundown, but ladies and gentlemen, it's a Cody Davies episode, and you know what that means. Cody, what does that mean?
Well, that means that we have a few more parts for you today in the Sacred Realms rundown.
Just a few.
So we'll start with part 7, Cody's tips and tricks. This one's about the rabbits. They'll move and then stop. Don't just try to aim at where they are when they stop, because by the time the net hits, they'll have moved. Try to tap, just ahead of the direction that they're facing when they stop. There is a little bit of a trick to it. Once you get used to the rabbits, they'll become a bit easier to catch. So that was my game tip.
Were you listening, Matt? Because it sounds like you
I was listening.
Experiencing rabbit difficulty.
I did experience rabbit difficulty. I will attempt to do better next time.
Okay.
So part 8, as we all know, is Australia facts.
It is known.
It is.
Here is a question for both of you. Do you know when Australia became a country?
I don't.
I'm going to guess 1925.
Interesting. I'll guess 1952.
All right, well, that's quite late. That's after World War II. But no, Australia became a country on January 1st, 1901.
Hey,
it's a very tidy date to become a country.
It's 010101.
Yeah, the first day of the new century, technically. It's technically speaking 1900 or 2000 or whatever is part of the previous century. So yeah, the first day of the 20th century, Australia officially became a country because they sent Britain a letter and were like, we're going to become a country. And Britain said, okay.
They were tired of fighting wars about that and just decided to let it happen.
Britain said, we just let people do this now.
Yeah, I mean, look, there was still the citizenship stuff and everything was still fairly linked for a good period of time after that. Like there was still, we're still part of the Commonwealth, which is to say we still have King Charles III as the King of Australia, as well as Britain. But yeah, its actual splitting from being colonies into being an organised federal parliament was at the start of 1901. So that caused a few problems because the Australia Day is a holiday that we have that's controversial for the same reasons that like Columbus Day is controversial in America. It sort of celebrates when the white people came and killed a bunch of people and landed on the shores.
Yeah, it's a tried and true tradition.
That is deeply controversial. The date of that, which is the 26th of January, whether it should be shifted. But there's not really part of the problem is that it would be nice if there was just a day that was like, oh, here's when Australia was founded, but we were founded on New Year's Day, which is already a holiday. So that's not going to work. Obviously that's not the biggest problem, but it is the problem of the people who want a different date don't really have a unified theory on when the real date should be of Australia Day, which would help them immensely if they were to have a single day that they could bring up. But yeah, January 1st is not really the best day for a public holiday when it already is one. So we'll go now to part 11, America facts. Can you tell me when America became a country?
Well, that would be I feel like I know the answer to this, but the fact that you're asking me this question leads me to believe that there's a trick answer. I feel like most people would say July 4th, 1776. Oh, but actually, I feel like
that's just the Declaration of Independence.
The Declaration of Independence was actually written on July 2nd, though. I don't think it was like.
But it was. I think it was officially signed on the 4th.
Was it?
But
okay.
Also, you can't necessarily count that because we didn't win the Revolutionary War until 1779.
Oh, that's fair. You had to actually do the war, right? And
1778, I think.
I don't remember. Cody, notable Australian. When did the United States of America become an official country?
So you were tying yourselves in knots there, but I I was fishing for the simple answer, the 4th of July.
Oh, okay, good. Yeah, we got this one right. Sort of.
But yeah, as you know, it was originally an American holiday, but after the aliens tried to invade Earth, it became an international holiday, Independence Day.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
When we cried aloud with one voice, didn't go quietly into the night, etc. The day that Bill Pullman and Randy Quaid flew fighter jets against an alien flying saucer. We all remember that day.
And Will Smith
downloaded a virus with their Mac computer or something.
Yeah, because apparently the operating systems of both the 1990 something whatever Windows operating system they had and the whatever's on the alien ship were compatible.
Yeah, that was the great thing about the alien ship. It ran on Linux.
It worked really well.
It makes total sense.
If it ain't broke, man, don't fix it.
Geez. But you're right. I'm glad that the 4th of July is now a holiday that we can share with the entire world, Cody.
Yeah, no, we all love to remember the alien invasion. So part 12 is, of course, the water dragon in Skyward Sword doesn't know what she's doing.
It's just generally always true.
Generally always true. You did give it a special shout out last week. I think you called it part 8, which is Australia facts. But
how dare you, Matt?
You know what, man? I'm doing my best. Okay. I don't have it written down like Cody does. Maybe I should.
Well, I feel like everyone should have it memorized what all the parts to the Sacred Realms rundown are.
That's fair. We've done it enough times.
All 18 parts. Yeah. So part 14, all right, tell me, what do you think part 14 is?
Is this visit zeldawiki.wiki?
It is. It is, in fact, visit zeldawiki.wiki. And if you install, it's a Chrome app, etc., called Indie Wiki Buddy, then whenever you Google search something on your computer that has it installed, and the first result is a fandom result, it will cross it out and give you an independent wiki version of it instead. And that will be much better for everyone involved, including you, because you don't have to have your browser overload with several running auto-playing videos and pop-up ads and whatever else shows up. Mm-hmm. But yes, that's it's always, and in this game, whenever you meet someone or fight a boss or something, you might want to visit zeldawiki.wiki and say, I wonder what this character or this enemy is called in a bunch of different languages, and you'll be able to find that at zeldawiki.wiki. The Maladus, incidentally, has a similar name in every language because it is based on a train. The Mallard is a famous steam locomotive that was the holder of the world speed record for steam locomotives. So all the translations are a variation of Mallard, or Maladus, or just Malado or Mallard. So there you go. So that's the kind of thing that you can learn at zeldawiki.wiki. A great website.
A notably wonderful website, which I reference quite a lot.
Part 17 is visit zeldauniverse.net and zeldamaps.com. So these are the other websites in that particular little network. ZeldaUniverse.net has all sorts of things. If you go there, you can visit social media and stuff that's not on ZeldaUniverse.net, but there's a link to it because we're on everything these days. And ZeldaMaps.com, if you are playing Breath of the Wild or Tears of the Kingdom or Link's Awakening, there is an interactive map for you. The reason it's those three games is basically just because that's the Link's Awakening remake, and those two games are sort of the most recent games, and that's what we ended up getting put on there. But we do want to have more of it in the future.
Gotcha.
And then part 18 is called Volunteer for Zelda Universe. Currently, the news team is recruiting. If you would like to get involved in writing news for Zelda Universe, then that's the kind of thing that we are looking for some help with. If you go to zeldauniverse.net and scroll down the bottom, there's a volunteer page, and it can tell you some more details and have a contact form for applying. But yeah, that's just something, we don't always have news that is direct Zelda news because Nintendo only announces new things about Zelda games very rarely. But, we do cover, for example, there's one from a few days ago called Prince of Persia devs show interest in making a Zelda game. So it's that kind of just reporting on incidental Zelda stuff that's happening when we don't have any Nintendo Directs and we don't have any upcoming games. But it's definitely something that if you want to get involved in, you should give it a try. And we're also looking for features writers. I've been trying to recruit Matt to write some strong opinions for Zelda Universe.
Matt is full of strong opinions, and Matt would love to write you an opinion piece once Matt has more time post-wedding.
So if unlike Matt, you have plenty of time and you are interested in writing, you can apply for features as well. We have features, guides, writers, news writers. On the writing front, and then we have columns, which are, just like Bomber's Notebook, which is, just talking about a character that you like, or Tingle's Maps, which has, locations. And those are all sort of weekly columns that go out, and you can help with that. So that's my extended advertisement for volunteering at Zelda Universe.
Very nice.
And that's the final part of our 18-part Sacred Realms rundown for today.
Well, there's no Sacred Realms rundown like a Cody Davies Sacred Realms rundown. Every piece is special, and we love them all. Cody, do you want to remind everyone where they can follow you on socials before we get out of here?
Yeah, look, I'm on Twitter at Magicody. I'm on Threads and Blue Sky. I don't know, just look up my name. I don't remember what my username is. But, I don't post that much at the moment online, but you can find work that I do at Zelda Universe. And if you want to follow other stuff I do, you can follow me on the Twitters, etc.
There you go. Highly recommend that you all go do that. And as always, keep it locked to Zelda Universe as well. Great partners to us and a great site with a lot of wonderful resources. Cody, we always love having you on the show. Thanks for coming back on this week. We're still trying to get the guest list for the remainder of Spirit Tracks figured out. We're probably going to be doubling up on episodes 2 per week, at least once leading up to Matt's wedding, so that we've got some buffer created for him because he will not be taking time on his honeymoon to record an episode of the podcast.
I think that's a very good way to start your marriage off on a rocky foot.
Yeah, no one's expecting that of you. So we're gonna find ways to where you don't have to do that. So
very appreciative.
Anyway, this season isn't much longer than the last one, but maybe we'll have you on before the end of it. Maybe not, and if not, we'll certainly have you on for another game in the future once Spirit Tracks is all said and done. But until then, it's been a great time, Cody, and thanks for coming on.
Ye goodbye.
Ye goodbye. Choo choo.
Choo choo.
There you go.
Ye choo choo goodbye, as they say in Texas.
As they say in Texas. All right, Matt, you ready to get out of here for the week?
Let's do it, man.
Let's do it. It's midnight on the dot. If you enjoyed today's show and you would like a little extra Sacred Realms in your life, you can head over to patreon.com/Sacred Realms Pod and become a patron. If you've got no rupees, it's not a problem. 5-star Apple Podcasts are a great free way to support us. More reviews means that more people see our show. That makes us very happy, Hylians. Follow us on Twitter and Instagram at Sacred Realms Pod for updates on the podcast and for behind-the-scenes action. Sacred Realms will be back next Wednesday with our thoughts on Spirit Tracks Chapter 3. We'd love for you to play along with us and to share your thoughts on our social channels. Spirit Tracks can unfortunately only be played in its original form on the Nintendo DS or 3DS using a cartridge, or if you happen to get it on the Wii U Virtual Console before it was delisted, then you can play it there as well. Really wish there were more easy ways for people to pick this up and play it, but that is just not in the cards, it seems. But in the meantime, may your hearts be full, may your arrows never miss. We'll catch y'all next time. Sacred Realms is an independent, listener-supported podcast, which is produced, edited, and mixed by me, Lyndon Willoughby. Business operations are handled by Matt Willoughby. Our music is generously provided by Darknuck and is available to listen to on Spotify. Finally, we'd like to thank Nintendo for continuing to create such exceptional and innovative experiences.